Okay, come on. Let's go.
I don't know what's wrong. It's not working.
We're 2 minutes late here. We gotta get on.
I know. I said I know. It's TriCaster isn't working though.
Okay, get it working.
It's not. We're gonna have to start late. It's not gonna work.
All right. You know what to assume the position. Go.
You've found yourself at the junction where worlds meet. Politics.
Civility? How about honesty in this country, folks?
Entertainment.
I don't like entertainment.
And a whole bunch of other stuff.
It's about having a healthy body image. You have a very unhealthy body. You should have a horrible body image.
Not a big home improvement market in Detroit.
We are definitely going to get letters.
You're listening to Talk Radio's Strangest Animal.
You're a strange animal, that's what I know.
You're getting louder with Crowder.
But you're a strange animal, I got to follow. Oh, I'm in the spiritus.
Glad to be with you. That is the sound of the weekend. That was my doggo Hopper getting angered at the dancing. Even he finds it offensive. Louderwithcrowder.com for all references. I am your host, Stephen Crowder. Producing with me in video studio, as always, is Jared, who is not gay. Follow him on Twitter at NotGayJared. I fulfill my legal obligations. Draw your own conclusions. We good?
Yeah.
Hmm?
We're good.
You don't sound like you're sure. By the way, if you hear me drinking my beverage tonight, it's because Not Gay Jared had to remove my mute button. Something with it was going haywire. Big show. Huge. Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Don't think we've ever had such a big show. We have NBA superstar Andrew Bogut.
Yep.
A little bit of a bad boy. Going to get personal. There's some back and forth that happened behind the scenes that will bring you in on the inside gag. Andrew Bogut. Austin Petersen, former Libertarian candidate, to sound off on the debates from this week. Christopher Titus, after the very heated gun debate. We're going to bring him on in the last
Miracles
hour.
do happen. He came back.
He came back. And we'll talk about the fallout, maybe talk a little bit about this election. We have a few segments we're also really happy. Donald Trump. Donald Trump will be calling in toward the end of the program.
How do we forget that one off the bat?
I don't know how we forgot that one. Donald Trump will be calling in. Of course, as you know, he generally calls in. He doesn't do the
He's a hard
video.
get through the video.
So we have that. And then we'll be debunking the Adam Ruins Everything viral video about how a wall doesn't help with immigration. Hint, a lot of it is untrue. So right off the bat, though, we did a live stream during the debates this week, and you can tweet us, by the way, at @SCrowder if there are topics that you want to hear. I always forget to say that because sometimes we forget some topics and people really want some. They want to get some.
Get some feedback. Get some chatter.
They want to get some chatter going on cheddar.
On the YouTube.
Why are we doing this?
I don't know. This is weird.
The debates occurred. We live streamed it. I am astounded that we had like hundreds of thousands of people just watching us drink beers and live stream the debate. So we will be doing that.
If that doesn't tell you about the state of America.
Well, apparently we made it palatable. Like we said during that debate live stream, if you're looking for cheerleading, if you're looking for, oh, damn, Trump got you, this isn't the program for you. Here was my take on it. We did it in wrap-up thoughts. I've had some time to let it percolate. Donald Trump came out really strong, first 15, 20 minutes, and then ironically enough didn't have the stamina to go into those sort of championship rounds. Yeah. Hillary Clinton pulled ahead. If you look at the legitimate polls and focus groups, I know you have some on the right that, you can't use Drudge Report, an online poll, right? Just like all these people used to say, you can't use the Ron Paul polls because he can mobilize people online. Mm-hmm. Those aren't scientific. Those aren't legitimate. If you look at the actual focus groups that were run, yes, CNN oversampled liberals, but there were others. Overwhelmingly, people thought Hillary won that debate.
Yep.
However, Your Honor, Donald Trump stood to gain the most because expectations were so low for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. People just want to have a reason to not vote Hillary Clinton. The people who haven't decided yet, and in this election, that's more than ever in recent history, they want just give me a reason to pull the lever for Trump. He had a good enough performance to maybe get, if either of them are going to gain those undecided people, by a couple of points, it might be a wash, and they might gain the same amount of undecided people.
I think what favored him was that his strong point was at the beginning. I think there were probably a lot of people who probably thought he did really well, possibly tuned out before the second. I mean, these are long debates.
It's interesting that you say that because
a lot of people probably tuned out halfway.
If you watch our lives and the people who are tweeting us, at the beginning they were going, okay, he's going to be the next president. And then they were getting progressively depressed throughout the debate. My dad and my brother, who were doing some work, they tuned in about 30 minutes late. Their interpretation was just, oh my gosh, Hillary mopped the floor with him.
Yeah.
So if you didn't see those first 30 minutes, it was an absolute domination of Donald Trump. If you only saw those 30 minutes, it was a domination of Hillary Clinton. If you saw it in its entirety, slight edge Hillary Clinton. Again, not to me on politics. Here's the problem with that too. Hillary Clinton, I hate her ideas. I hate what she stands for. Everything about her. But she's able to articulate it pretty effectively in a debate. Donald Trump, some of his ideas I don't like. Some of them I really like. He's not able to articulate it. That's the issue. So Hillary's issue is she's able to articulate crap, and Donald Trump is not able to effectively communicate, even if it's brilliant.
Of course, it helps because she was sending Lester Holt signals.
That's the new conspiracy.
Sending.
Here's the deal. You don't need conspiracies with Hillary Clinton. There's so much to actually go on. Now we're going into Lester Holt conspiracies.
That said, it's really, really entertaining.
It is entertaining. And here's the deal. Lester Holt, was he biased? Probably.
Sure.
Still not convinced he's black. Lester Holt, probably biased. But you know that going in as a Republican. You should know that. And it's okay. We know it wasn't a Candy Crowley moment. Did he ask more critical questions of Donald Trump? More questions personally to Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton? Yes, you can look at those numbers. However, to be fair, Donald Trump didn't answer some of his questions. And if I were a moderator, I would have followed up too.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump did interrupt Hillary Clinton a lot more than Hillary Clinton interrupted Donald Trump. So I think it was actually, compared to like the Candy Crowley situation, compared to what we saw with Romney Obama, I don't think it was as bad as we've seen.
Yeah.
I really don't. And I will say this one thing. I know people are going to get really mad when I say this. The no-fly, no-buy thing from Donald Trump is as upsetting as any mistake he's made, where he said, no, if you can't fly, you should maybe no buy. And people say, well, he came with the caveat that he'll make it easier to get off that no-fly list. Here's the thing. You don't get to take away fundamental constitutional rights, whether you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, because of some arbitrary list where you haven't been convicted of a crime. There's no due process, regardless of whether we create an appeal process. You don't get to do it. And here's my issue with Donald Trump on that. The fact that he's gone back and forth 2-3 times on that, people are going to get mad. You need to be honest. It shows that he doesn't understand a constitutional right. It shows that he doesn't understand the concept of you don't get to take away rights because of political expediency. That really pissed me off. And if you look online on Twitter, when people were being honest, if you look online as the live debate was going on, a lot of conservatives were upset about that. I know you were too.
Oh, I was. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it. Because I think he mentioned something about the NRA even in there. So he was thinking in a framework of this is not what I'm supposed to say.
Right.
And I think those are some things that just kind of show not so much like a misstep. That's just kind of like, I hate to say it, but I think that's the real Donald Trump kind of leaking through, kind of his natural bent.
And it doesn't mean that he's worse than Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is abysmal. I get it. The problem is, and here's the problem with social media right now, the second I can see the lines lighting up with people who are furious, any criticism of Donald Trump is going to put Hillary Clinton in office. No, listen. You, 2 months ago, were ranting and raving about how great it was that Donald Trump met with the NRA. ARFCOM, AR15.com, where the live chat occurs. I know you guys are watching. You were just praising him by saying, well, you know what? It shows that he can learn because he thought no fly, no buy, and then he changed after his meeting with the NRA. For him to change back, that should piss you off, and you should want to keep him accountable, and it's okay to be critical on that. That is a non-negotiable issue. You don't get to remove fundamental birthrights, the right to protect yourself. You either believe in the Second Amendment or you don't. With Stephen Hayes, with Ted Kennedy, I think it was Congressman Clyburn, all kinds of people have been put on the no-fly list. I know many people who've been put on the no-fly list. Imagine that. Imagine you need to protect yourself.
I'm surprised you haven't ended up on the no-fly list yet.
Who knows? It's been a while since I've flown.
It has been.
I Greyhound it with the retards. Speaking of which, while the debate was going on,
meanwhile,
this happened with Gary Johnson.
Who's your favorite foreign leader?
Who's my favorite?
Just name anywhere in the country, any one of the continents, any country. Name one foreign leader that you respect and look up to. Anybody.
Mine was Shimon Peres.
No, okay, I'm talking about living.
No, shut up.
You got to do this. Anywhere, any continent. Canada, Mexico, Europe over there, Asia, South America,
Just
Africa,
say
name
Trudeau.
a foreign leader that you respect.
I guess I'm having an Aleppo moment in the former
But
president
I'm
of
giving you
Mexico.
the whole world.
I know.
Anybody in the world you
Whole
like.
campaign's an Aleppo
Anybody.
moment.
Pick any leader.
Pick any. It was like Celebrity Jeopardy.
It was.
Just say the number 10. Just say 10.
I couldn't believe it.
And then his running
It was
mate
just
went on to say Merkel.
Merkel.
The worst. The person who let in all of the Islamic terrorist refugees for record rape and record crime. I mean, to say that these guys are like Dumb and Dumber would be an affront to Lloyd Christmas. It's not fair. It is unbelievable. I think potheads deserve a better representative than Gary Johnson. It really does seem like he smoked himself silly. This is not the same Gary Johnson from, was it 08 or 2012?
I don't remember.
Gosh.
Wasn't paying attention that long.
Just pick one.
Just pick one.
Just pick any.
In defense, he tried to remedy it with this tweet right here.
Oh, he tweeted out, It's been almost 24 hours and I still can't come up with a foreign leader I look up to. Now, here's the deal. If I understood like, oh, this guy has just a fantastic sense of humor, you know what I mean? I would say, that was brilliant. I'd retweet it. I don't trust that that's the case with Gary Johnson. I don't think he has any self-awareness.
No.
That's that cerebral cortex. Remember we had the doctor saying, that's the one area that can be altered by an incredible amount of pot smoking.
Go home, Gary. You're high.
Go home, Gary. You are high. It's over. Go home. And here's the thing. With the Libertarian Party, too, Gary, this would have been an incredible opportunity. I don't think you should throw away your vote. You should vote however you want, right? But let's be honest. If you're voting for Gary Johnson, you're throwing away your vote. It's a protest vote. Fine. Do whatever you want. But he has a 0 chance at winning. We know that. But this would have been an opportunity for the first time since like Ross Perot to at least make their voice heard if the Libertarians had the fat naked stripper at the Libertarian Convention, the Chris Farley Chippendales lookalike, would have been more equipped to handle this election than Gary Johnson.
I think so. More informed, probably a little more prepared. Words coming a little faster to the brain.
Gosh, Dave Rubin must be shooting himself at the local gay bar. I can't imagine that he's handling this well. And I understand the spirit of it, but...
Well, he's probably not, because he has not gotten the gun yet.
He has not gotten that gun yet.
Hashtag
gift the gun. We will be back to talk about... Oh, my God. Oh, Emma Watson. That's in the docket.
Oh, spare us.
And now, Hillary Clinton fact checks in real time that didn't happen, but should have. These should have. I can't believe these didn't actually happen. Fair point, Mr. Trump. Secretary Hillary Clinton, based on your health issues, Donald Trump has called your stamina into question. How do you respond?
Well, as soon as he travels to 112 countries and negotiates a peace deal, a ceasefire, a release of dissidents, an opening of new opportunities in nations around the world, or even spends 11 hours testifying in front of a congressional committee, he can talk to me about stamina.
Okay, weren't you spending 11 hours in front of a congressional hearing because they were investigating you for felonies that possibly killed people?
That's us.
Stay tuned for more fact checks of Hillary Clinton in real time. That didn't happen. No, really, it gets worse. Stay tuned. Hey, Jared, what are you doing?
Shooting bad guys.
With what?
By AR-15.
Where'd you get it?
AR-15.com.
Enunciate it more clearly so our audience can hear.
AR-15.com.
That's better. They sell guns now?
Yeah, they do.
Are they any good?
They're the best.
Where from?
AR-15.com. Kapoo. Kapish.
You really make that sound?
Didn't have the budget for sound effects. Kapoo. Kapow.
Oh, there's another one.
Kapow.
You got him. With what?
By AR-15.
From where?
AR-15.com.
Hey, how do you know they're bad guys?
Turbans and burkas. Kapoo.
That's racist. right, glad to be back. We have Austin Petersen coming up after the break, Libertarian Candidate.
Pick his brain. Maybe talk about Gary Johnson.
Maybe.
That's
got to be a
He's
sore
got to
spot
have
for
some
him.
thoughts, some words,
That has got to be a sore spot.
some
for him.
syllables to share.
Austin Petersen, obviously I couldn't have voted for the guy because of the open borders policy, but I like him. I think he's a pretty sharp guy. And for him to lose a primary to a party that won't even get 10% of the vote, to a guy who was effectively Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character from radio, is a really rough pill to swallow.
It is.
That is a bitter pill to swallow. Speaking of bitter,
Oh, Lord.
gosh, it's Emma Watson, right?
Emma Watson.
Who else am I thinking of who was in that actress who was in Birdman, Spider-Man?
Emma Stone.
Emma Stone.
Yeah.
Two really generic. You know what's funny? I can more easily remember ethnic names, like typical white guy or white girl names.
Really?
Like Bob Jones. I'm like, what was that? Robert?
Yeah, that's true.
It's really
I see
hard.
that.
So Emma Watson, I just forgot Emma Stone,
Emma Stone.
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt.
They're you pronounced your B like a fat guy.
Blunt.
Sounded like someone who failed at trying to skip stones. So she went before the UN here and talked about feminism.
God bless
in
her.
a turtleneck. All right, let's start rolling this clip here, and we'll just roll through and pause it.
Thank you all for being here for this important moment. These men from all over the world have decided to make gender equality a priority in their lives and in their universities. Thank you for making this commitment.
I can tell you what those men look like.
I graduated from university 4 years ago.
Wait, this is too early.
I had always dreamed of going, and I know how
The clip I
fortunate
sent you
I
started
am.
later.
Oh, it gets into it.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure we're not wasting people's time because
No.
it gets really bad, and I want to get to that quickly before I have an aneurysm.
Okay.
To
I don't
have
want to
the
go into a
opportunity
Hillary
to do
seizure.
so.
No one needs that.
Brown became my home, my community, and I took the ideas and the experiences I had there into all of my social interactions, into my workplace, into my politics, into all aspects of my life.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
I know that my university experience shaped who I am.
Yep, and that's a
And
problem.
of course, it does for many people.
She's right.
But what if our experience of university shows us that women don't belong in leadership? What if it shows us that, yes, women can study, but they shouldn't lead a seminar?
That's not shown anywhere in any university.
What if, as still in many places around the world,
Many places?
it tells us that women don't belong there at all?
Are you talking about like Saudi Arabia?
What if, as is the case in far too many universities, we are given the message that sexual violence isn't actually a form of violence?
Pause. This is before the UN. Name one! Name one university that is... I can name you 50 universities off of the top of my head where gender studies are taught, rape culture is taught. Point me to one university where the curriculum is sexual assault is not really violence 101. Name one. They trot this out, and by the way, they trot this out to demand international sanctions, to demand international globalist rule of law from the UN to take your rights away. We'll get into that later because the UN called for the United States to give reparations to black Americans. No word yet on African nations who sold them into slavery. Name one university where rape is taught as, we're swept under the rug. Name one university that teaches women you're not allowed to be in a position of leadership. Name one university that is opposed to demanding safe spaces, trigger warnings, and checking your privilege. Name one university that is this bastion of misogyny and rape culture and inequality that what's her name? Emma Watson is talking about. See, I can't even remember her name. She's so generic. Her opinions are so pedestrian and regurgitated, and she's right. Here's the thing. She's right. The university does shape your worldview. It absolutely does. And she went in there with none. She was a girl. I'll get into this after because let's go. Just go.
But we know that if you change students' experiences so they have different expectations of the world around them, expectations of equality, society will change.
Damn it!
As we leave home for the first time to study at the places that we have worked so hard to get, we must not see or experience double standards. We need to see equal respect, leadership, and pay.
All right, that's enough. I can't. Yeah, so this is a stupid person.
And
by the way,
fairness, she spent 10 years in dress up and play with wands, so that's got to qualify for something.
Yes, you're absolutely right. First off, pay. This is a dumb person. I don't know why Emma Watson is like this meme online that people find her attractive or there's something about her that's compelling. I can't think of somebody more ill-informed, boring, and bad at their job. She's right. University does shape their worldview. And these kids are going in, it's an indoctrination factory where they're being taught false statistics like you need to go before the UN to demand more pay. She couldn't be more wrong. And like you said, this is Emma Watson's greatest qualification to have an opinion. Not saying she can't have an opinion, but she's sitting before the UN, who kind of screw up international law a whole lot. Her greatest qualification is she was a cute, if awkward, unibrowed kid who was a good enough actor for them to hand her millions of dollars to take part in a franchise before she even had her first female cycle. So this woman was surrounded by piles of cash. And here's the thing, she's talking about this will shape our worldview, and people will have different expectations. That's true. College does shape your worldview, and people will have different expectations. That's why you have an entire generation of social justice warriors who get their teeth kicked in by the real world because they get into the real world and they realize that it's not safe spaces and trigger warnings. That's the same thing with her. Here's the thing that people need to understand. You know why this story doesn't end well for most child actors? All of Hollywood is a safe space. The only place outside of university where you have safe spaces and trigger warnings and precious is Hollywood. Why? Because since Emma Watson has been a little girl, she has had her ass kissed by agents, managers, publicists, producers, directors who have a vested interest to make sure that she does not face any real adversity of any kind because they need to protect their product and their brand. And so she's going to go out into the world with unrealistic expectations, just like every child actor. Usually it results in coke off some broad's hip bones. In this case, it results in her lecturing the UN and the rest of the world on how we need to pay women more and start treating rape seriously. All of Hollywood is a safe space. Everything she said there is right except for the facts on pay, on a sexual assault, on violence against women. But the fact that university can shape worldviews, yes. And she is demanding less intellectual diversity because she wants to shape one worldview. The worldview she's had, unchallenged, throughout Hollywood, her entire career, and university. I've lost the ability to even... Austin Petersen next. Hillary's seizure, it hurts.
And now, Party Conversations with Lester Holt.
Oh my god, no way.
No, I assure you it's true.
No, you're joking.
No, I'm not.
You're joking. Right, there's no way. No, I don't believe you.
You should.
No, I can't even.
You should even.
What? You're really black?
Quite. This has been Party Conversations with Lester Holt.
It's
time for the adventures of Clockboy and Care.
Hey, help me! Help me! Help me!
Oh, that poor man in that building! Someone save him!
Have no fear.
Wow, Clockboy!
That's correct.
Please, there's not much time. Save that man!
Help me!
Absolutely. If I can have just one moment.
What are you doing, Clockboy?
I am removing the internals of my Philips clock radio, and I am inserting them into this briefcase.
And how will that help?
Good question. I am then going to take this briefcase, which clearly resembles a bomb, up onto that burning man in the building.
And
when he points out that it looks like a bomb, clearly, my sidekick Care will come in to sue him.
But how is that helping?
It helps me.
Allah.
Stay tuned for more adventures of Clockboy and Care. Follow him on Twitter. He's verified, you know.
Akbar.
Wake up, it's fly.
Reach the wizard.
It's fly. Wake up,
Reach the wizard.
it's fly.
There
we go. He's a gamer. Look, he ran for president, but he can still have fun. Austin Petersen, of course, Libertarian Candidate. I'm sorry, Austin, I lost the name of your website. Is it Libertarian Republic?
The Libertarian Republic.
The Libertarian Republic. Go check it out. He's been a friend of the show. Now, as far as the Libertarian Party ticket, you missed it by that much. Let's go right into it. Gary Johnson is there. What is Aleppo? Your thoughts?
Right. Bake the damn Aleppo. So yeah, that was obviously a big stumble, but it ended up being a good thing, not necessarily for Gary Johnson, but for, I think, foreign policy, because a lot of people started Googling Aleppo, right? Yes. Everybody was like, he was like, what an idiot. I mean, everybody was like, well, what is Aleppo, right? So yeah. It was probably good to shine a light on a region of the world that people need to be paying more attention to. But yeah, it was obviously a flub. It got him a lot more attention. So, I mean, if that's what your metric is success, well, then I would say that was successful for him. But he definitely needs to brush up on foreign policy.
Yeah, he does. And potheads need a better representative. I will say that. Like because he's not the same Gary Johnson who was when he was in office, and now it does seem maybe like he smoked himself a little bit silly, and they deserve better. My lazy pothead friends.
There is a different Gary Johnson from 2008 to 2012. Not exactly sure what happened. I think that probably the primary got him beat up pretty bad. So he may have come out of that a little bit more bruised. And then now he's got his VP choice, Bill Weld, that he's got out there. And so, if you're a pothead, then Gary Johnson is your candidate. And, there's nothing wrong with potheads. I've smoked marijuana, and, I don't see anything wrong with it. But I think that, Gary Johnson definitely needs to step up his game in certain areas. But, did you watch the debate the other night?
Well, that was my question, because when we had, you're a libertarian, but you had your issues with Gary Johnson. Obviously, the gun issue with him, he's remarkably inconsistent. The carbon tax that he talked about. He is just in a year where would have been a real opportunity for the Libertarian Party. He is just the worst person to put forward right now. So where are you? Are you voting Gary Johnson? Are you considering Trump? Where are you when we're in this kind of circus?
Well, I'm not considering Trump just because I worry about the rise of hyper-nationalism in the United States, because I think what that does is that leads to things like tariffs, that eventually leads to tax increases. I think that Trump, he's supposed to be the top diplomat, the top ambassador, and Gary, for all of his faults, I would trust him more as a diplomat or ambassador for our country rather than Trump, who seems to be a little bit of a loose cannon. Did you hear, I don't know if you heard today, Barack Obama came out this week and said that don't vote for Gary Johnson because that's a vote for a vote for Trump. And that's funny because all the Trump voters say that a vote for Johnson is a vote for Hillary. So I can't decide if by voting for Johnson I'm voting for Trump or Hillary. So it's a little confusing. But I personally prefer Johnson to Trump or Hillary.
I think it comes down to, are you terrified? Do you find the prospect of a Hillary Clinton presidency terrifying enough that even if you're a libertarian or third party, you don't like them, that you say, all right, I can't allow it, in which case you vote for Trump, not Johnson, because we know, Johnson doesn't actually really have a chance of winning the election. It depends on how terrifying the idea is of a Hillary Clinton presidency. I think that sort of determines who you think it could help more.
Well, I'm a little bit more strategic when it comes to that. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I kind of come from the Alexander Hamilton Federalist wing of the Libertarian Party. Mm-hmm. And Alexander Hamilton made the argument that it's better to have someone who, at the top of the ticket, or in the presidency, that you did not support, that you are not responsible for, because that way you can oppose them. And if the candidate is Hillary Clinton, then I think that the Republicans and Libertarians and conservatives, we would all finally be united again against a common enemy. And that way we're not responsible for what Hillary Clinton does. If Donald Trump wins, then the Republicans, and to a smaller extent, some conservatives, are responsible for what Donald Trump does. I would quite frankly like to see conservatives and libertarians start getting back together and working together again.
Well, why haven't they been under 8 years of Obama? Why would it take Hillary Clinton, for them to be the opposition party?
Oh, I don't know that we've necessarily been, there hasn't been that much disunity over the last years 8 years when it comes to Obama. So, and here's the thing, the Cato Institute actually published a study about divided government, mm-hmm. and what they found was when they analyzed government spending and government growth.
Democrat president and Republican House, I think.
Exactly. If you have a Republican House, a Republican Senate with a Democratic president, historically the growth of government has been the least, right? Government always grows. Mm-hmm. Government is that's the trend. But it grows the least when you have a Democratic president with a Republican Senate and House. I don't know if we're going to be able to maintain the Senate and House, but I'd like to see us gather together to build the coalitions that would make that necessary.
Well, and for all of his sort of protectionist policies, which we've talked about, Donald Trump, he did come out and say this week, he said he was going to cut the federal government by 25% right away. That's far more drastic in the sense of downsizing government than anything Gary Johnson has really put forward. So as a libertarian, what's your reaction to that? Or you just think, well, it's hot air?
Well, I think it's hot air, and the reason why is because if you remember before George W. Bush was elected, he wanted to make sure that the United States was not the policeman of the world. But then when it came down to it, he did the opposite. Mm-hmm. And we actually have seen Governor Gary Johnson govern. We haven't seen Donald Trump govern. So we don't actually know if Donald Trump would put his principles into practice. Whereas we actually do know what Governor Gary Johnson did in New Mexico, and that was to cut spending, cut the budget, and he governed much more libertarian than any other governor in history, I think, save maybe one or two.
Well, okay, so you talk about, not being responsible for them. But like you said, Republicans and libertarians have been united under Obama, and what's that gotten them? Nothing. So this is the argument from the other side of the coin. Saying you're not responsible for Hillary, and I understand that, and I understand that you do have to vote your conscience. I understand I could never, ever vote for Hillary. I've always said Trump has to Election Day to convince me. I've tried to support him where I think he's right, criticize him where I think it's fair. That's what I've tried to do. That being said, if you vote for anyone outside of Trump against Hillary, because like you said, you don't want to be responsible for it, is there some aspect of you're kind of playing chicken with the United States of America at that point?
It depends. I mean, if you're talking about the federal election in the broad sense, like a single vote is almost infinitesimally small in terms of the impact. What you really need to be focusing on are the local races. And remember, the president,
True.
even whether it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, they only have a certain amount of power. They only have a limited amount of power. So if you want real change, you should be paying to what's going on in your local elections. Because Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, either one of them, they'll both have the same amount of power. And
except
honestly,
the Supreme Court, though. I mean, that is one thing that is up in the balance, especially as a Second Amendment person. I know you are. I know Gary Johnson, not as much. That's got to keep you up at night, right? With that is for me. I'm like, gosh, the Supreme Court, the Heller case. I can't see not weighing that as heavily as anything I've done in my political lifetime.
Right, but the only problem with that is that Republicans don't have a very good track record of picking conservative judges either. I mean, who was the Supreme Court justice that gave us the Obamacare decision that codified it? Right, that was a Republican pick under George W. Bush.
Right.
There was a federal judge by the name of Richard Posner who said that the Constitution doesn't really apply anymore. He was nominated there by Ronald Reagan. So we haven't really had a good history of conservative judges being picked necessarily by Republicans either.
I do think on the Second Amendment, I think the Second Amendment is such a strong issue, and Republicans, for all of their faults, have done a good job of keeping their feet to the fire. I don't think you'd have a Republican or conservative Supreme Court justice who would say that private citizens have no right to own firearms at all, which is what the dissenting arguments, right, where a lot of people don't realize that with the Heller case. It wasn't capacity limitation, or it was you don't have the right to own firearms in the United States, which is insanity. The argument against the current ruling is way more important that even though we ruled, in favor.
Right, and some conservatives would say that the decision to uphold Obamacare would lead to the death of Obamacare. And in some ways it has, because we've seen that a lot of these people have been pulling out, the exchanges have been pulling out.
Right.
I think Aetna pulled out. So there is a very good argument for that as well. So you make good points.
Gosh, yeah. So you are going to pull the lever for Johnson?
Yes, I'm going to be supporting for Johnson. I'm all in for Johnson, absolutely.
Even though he got all bitchy and snippy with you on Stossel?
He has been so horribly rude to me, and he threw out my gun that I gave to him as a gift. But
you gave him a real gun as a gift?
Well, it was a replica of George Washington's flintlock pistol. I actually got it right here, but he threw it in the trash. It was a big, huge dust up. It was an argument because we had a pretty nasty primary, but I did endorse him anyway. But
he did that in front of you, or did he send you a letter? I threw out your gun, Austin.
Somebody saw him do it, and they pulled it out of the trash and gave it back to me.
So Donald Trump may not be the most petty person on that stage.
Maybe not. But here's the problem. The problem is nobody's going to give a damn about my ego in 4 years, 10 years, 18 years. I have to think about I have to do what's right, more than just care about people who insult me or slight me. I have to pick who I think is the best candidate, no matter what a jerk they may have been to me.
That's a good way to look at it. And I wish that Cruz, Trump, Rubio, all of them were able to do that. And I think the problem is they've been so divisive. I think they've been so personal in their attacks. It's really hard to get a lot of people coming over to that side. And that's where Donald Trump, he can't get over the hump of enough Republicans. It's not bringing over Democrats. It's enough Republicans because, listen, it's one thing to say my opponent was in the Gang of Eight or supported some kind of immigration bill that I don't like. It's another to say, as Dad might have killed JFK, it's hard to bring them over.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, it was a bitter fought primary, and Ted Cruz's endorsement was rather tepid last week. So that's why I think Trump is probably not going to win, because Hillary's base is solidified. Bernie Sanders endorsed her. And the difference is that with Cruz, it was much more of a wait and see and a last minute thing. So I see the Republican Party is in chaos right now. But if the Republican Party gets destroyed, and if Trump loses, that could be a good thing for the Republican Party going forward, because that would show that the conservatives had the right argument, and that Donald Trump and the nationalists and the populists are not going to be the future of the Republican Party. Because, do you really like Trump that much? I mean, he's not a conservative by any measure. He's kind of a liberal Republican and kind of a Rockefeller Republican in many ways. But the guy doesn't even have any real true philosophy or ideology. So I don't know that him winning is necessarily a good thing for the Republican Party either. I think that it probably sets the conservative cause back decades.
And I understand that argument, and Ben Shapiro makes the argument, there's no reverse gear. I would say this. It's easy for people like us who are so close to it to think that it's all this sort of nationalist populism. The vast majority of Trump supporters aren't that. I think the vast majority of Trump supporters are people who've been lifelong Republicans or people who feel like Republicans haven't gotten anything done. I think you have a loud contingency online who have Pepe the Frog swastikas.
I was going to say, what about the racist frog?
Yeah, what about the racist frog? And believe me, I get them. I get pictures sent of me in gas chambers, and it's like, well, I'm not even Jewish, but I guess they think that I am. And I get abhorrent. Those people are terrible. I don't think that's the biggest base voting for Trump. So I understand what you're saying, but I don't necessarily think that it proves conservatives right if Trump loses. It may just prove sort of the Republican Party is irrelevant. There are several ways to look at it, and Hillary Clinton would be so disastrous at this point. I don't know where we are as a country, and it seems like we're playing chicken. Only Hillary's the only one driving us off a cliff.
Sure, but she's very much an opportunist, just like her husband is. And I mean, think about what happened when Bill Clinton got destroyed in his midterm when he sought re-election. I mean, that guy became a conservative pretty darn quick, talking about welfare reform. I mean, Bill Clinton is the guy that originally said that he didn't want to regulate the internet, that the government should be. If there was a Democrat running like Bill Clinton,
that's just because he wanted the weirdest porn to stay up.
that was Anthony Weiner.
No, Anthony Weiner was the one uploading the porn.
Right, exactly, they were in cahoots. All right, but. No, I think that when it comes to Hillary Clinton, she's much more of a moderate Democrat. She's not the kind of I don't think she's even as much of a rabid socialist perhaps as Obama is. So as bad as she is, I think that when it comes to the differences between her and Trump, there really aren't that many big differences. They agreed on a lot of things the other night. Donald Trump saying, hey, if your name is on a terrorist watch list, sorry, bro.
I know.
Hey,
I know.
You were talking about the Second Amendment. If the government.
Oh, I know. Believe me, I don't think I'm not a huge Trump fan. Yeah. I was totally against him in the primaries. I just think we're at the point now where the gravity of the situation with Hillary Clinton. I don't know. We'll let's stay on this when we come back, and we'll also talk about Fox News and Roger Ailes grabbing our butts. Little known fact: Austin has a great butt, and it's irresistible.
It is actually. Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Rather large. For one
yes.
day.
Stay tuned. And now, Hillary Clinton fact checks in real time that didn't happen, but should have. These should have. I can't believe these didn't actually happen.
Race remains a significant challenge in our country. Unfortunately, race still determines too much. Often determines where people live, determines what kind of education in their public schools they can get, and yes, it determines how they're treated in the criminal justice system. We have to restore trust between communities and the police. We have to work to make sure that our police are using the best training, the best techniques, that they're well prepared to use force only when necessary. Everyone should be respected by the law, and everyone should respect the law. Right now, that's not the case in a lot of our neighborhoods. So I have, ever since the first day of my campaign, called for criminal justice reform. I've laid out a platform that I think would begin to remedy some of the problems we have in the criminal justice system.
Okay, I know you need the black vote now desperately, but isn't that an about-face, considering your husband's administration incarcerated more black people than anyone to come before him? The 3-strike rule. It's one of the reasons black people hate you. Kind of.
That's us.
Seems obvious, but no one said a thing. Before you kill yourself, stay tuned for more fact checks with Hillary Clinton that should have happened, but didn't. Damn it.
When it's time to party, we will party hard.
Glad to be back. Austin Petersen, Libertarian Candidate, the Libertarianrepublic.com. He is here with us. Cute guy, great guest. Glad to have him on the program. Here's the deal. I understand everything you're talking about, but a lot of people who are libertarians will get aggravated that you were far more critical of Trump just now and a little more forgiving of Hillary, even though there isn't as stark of a contrast as either one of us would like. I can understand people being like, well, it seems like these people want Hillary Clinton to win just so they can be proven right.
Ooh, yeah, not me. The problems that I have with Hillary are numerous. I mean, she's talking about mandatory, paid time off, but so is Trump. She's talking about people not being able to have their guns if they're put on terrorist watch lists, but so is Trump. So that's the problem is that it's much easier to criticize somebody because with Donald Trump, again, with no legislative experience, with no governing experience, he's more of that wild card. I mean, with Hillary, at least you know what you're getting, right? It doesn't mean that I support her, that I'm like easier on Hillary Clinton. It's just that, you give up on the Democrats, you have hope for the Republican. But when you have no hope for the Democrat, it's just a waste of time really criticizing them because pretty much everything that comes out of the mouth you're going to disagree with, except for the stop and frisk issue, which I do believe is unconstitutional and an abrogation of our Fourth Amendment rights. And that's the thing that Hillary Clinton is more libertarian than Trump on. Yeah. So, that's the problem, is that a libertarian looks at both sides of these things and says you get something with this candidate and then you lose it with the other candidate. So it's really just a wash.
Well, in fairness, I think Hillary, that's a race. Try to pick up a few more votes with that issue. It has nothing to do with the principle, I don't think.
Yeah, she's trying to win back. She's like, I can win back the Negroes with hot sauce and being against stop and frisk.
Sure, but why do you think Donald Trump takes any position that he takes, like being against the Iraq War, for example? Do you think that he does that because he thought it was a wrong decision? No, because as soon as it became politically expedient to be against the invasion of Iraq, that's the position that Trump took. So you could argue the same thing for the
I think
other
he was
side.
against it for before it became really popular. I would give him credit there. The Howard Stern thing notwithstanding, that was kind of off the cuff. I would give him credit as someone who, I remember him and Hannity arguing a while back when Hannity was still pro-Iraq war, a lot of people at Fox News. I think Trump's been pretty consistent on that.
Okay, well, I mean, let's say you give him that, but I mean, the question is do you really believe him? And do you think, I mean, Trump strikes me as the type of guy who would be willing to intervene around the world. He strikes me as a rather hostile character. His temperament, that's the problem. You want somebody who...
She's the one who has a temperament that's unfit. I've got the great temperament, okay, and the stamina. He's got the stamina.
Yeah. I know, I can't believe that we are here. I do think, listen, when it comes to the Supreme Court, I think that's important. I think he'll be better. When it comes to taxes, I think he'll be better. I do think he'll probably cut down the size of government to a degree. I don't think he has a fundamental, and this is where isms matter. A lot of people say, I don't believe in any ideology. Well, that's silly. Everyone has an ideology. You just need to be honest about it. The ism of you don't get to take away someone's fundamental constitutional right because they were put on an arbitrary list, even if you try to hedge it with, but we'll make it easier for them to get off. It doesn't matter. If they haven't been convicted of a crime, they don't lose their rights. And that's someone who doesn't understand the concept of not a civil right, a human right. And
right, it's an individual right to bear arms. And a lot of people will say, when they criticize the Second Amendment, they say, well, what about the militia clause? Well, if you actually go back and you read the constitutional debates, George Mason, who is George Washington's hunting buddy, said that, I asked, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole of the people, except for a few public officials. So that means that it's an individual right to bear arms to the citizens. And those are the type of rights that we need to be defending. But Donald Trump is not a defender of the Second Amendment by any means.
But I think, again, with Donald Trump, he is so beholden on the Second Amendment issue that his feet can be held to the fire, and I don't think he'll do anything that would be anything other than pro-Second Amendment. Whereas Hillary Clinton, she's so beholden to donors and so beholden to the moms demand action that I think she would go as far left as she could on gun control, which I think would probably make her a one-termer, because that's the single losingest issue, to use the word, of Democrats. But I do think that would be a big difference.
Well, what would be better, to have 2 terms of Trump or 1 term of Hillary? Don't you think that we'd probably be better off with 1 term of Hillary?
But what if the Muslims come to my house in that 1 term? I'm not willing to roll the dice with it. I need an AR-15 and screw you. That's my opinion.
Well, you can have your AR-15. That's the thing, but you have to vote for Gary Johnson.
Well, I mean, okay, but in your heart of hearts, you said they're pretty similar. Gary Johnson's not going to win. We know that. So you vote for Gary Johnson. Election day comes out. In your heart of hearts, do you feel better about the country if they say a new president, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump?
I don't feel good either way, and I'm being intellectually honest here, Stephen. I'm not trying to dance around.
No, I believe you.
I have really big problems with both of these candidates. Otherwise, I would support them. If Rand Paul had won, I would have never gone and run for president in the United States as a libertarian. I would have been supporting Rand Paul all the way. If Ted Cruz had won, this would have been a much more difficult situation for me. Because I ran because I thought, well, there's no way. I think Trump was absolutely going to win. And so it was, for me, it was a chance to give voters an opportunity to vote for someone who actually does care about the Constitution. But these 2 candidates, neither one of these candidates have any fidelity to the Constitution. So the Republican Party screwed up big time.
But you may have just tipped your hand there, because you said, I thought Trump was going to win. A lot of people saying, don't worry, he'll fizzle out. Is that because you and I, we both worked at a former news agency, and the inside baseball, and Roger Ailes is now working with Trump?
Yeah.
Did you know that all along? Or he's going to get a push?
Yeah, of course, because those guys have been buddies for years and years, and Donald Trump's on Fox and Friends every morning, their highest-rated show, the cable morning show, and so it was pretty obvious, because it's called the Fox News primary for a reason.
Right.
If you do well on Fox, then you've got it in the bag.
Were you just laughing internally? When everyone was going, "Oh, boycott Fox," because Megyn Kelly didn't like Donald Trump? Were you just laughing at the implosion?
Oh yeah, and it's amazing what's happened now. Because here we see, if Donald Trump loses, the word on the street is that they're going to start a rival news organization and combine forces with Breitbart to go ahead and try and compete against Fox News. And remember, a lot of our former colleagues had contracts, like Sean Hannity, that gave them outs if Roger Ailes is not the head of the institution. Bill O'Reilly might retire. Megyn Kelly might leave. Greta Van Susteren, she's gone, man. She's gone. Yeah, I saw her on Facebook like 3 weeks ago. She did a live stream, and there's a lot of weirdness going on with that, because it's almost seemed as if she didn't want to do that, because she was on Facebook. She looked real unhappy. She was like, well, I just want to keep doing the news, and so I'm going to start doing live streams on Facebook and stuff. And I'm like, damn.
And that's new and improved, Greta, with the face work. Austin Petersen, thelibertarianrepublic.com. Everyone, but we'll have to have him back, because last time we got into a fight on the border. But I love what he has to say. I hope he keeps shaking things up. Stay tuned. We have Andrew Bogut coming up soon, right?
Yep.
Andrew Bogut. Gosh, I don't know the order. I don't even know him. But Jared's a fan. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. And now Hillary Clinton fact checks in real time that didn't happen, but should have. These should have. I can't believe these didn't actually happen. All right, cybersecurity. Mr. Trump calls it the cyber. Hillary Clinton, go.
Well, I think cybersecurity, cyber warfare, will be one of the biggest challenges facing the next president, because clearly we're facing at this point 2 different kinds of adversaries. There are the independent hacking groups that do it mostly for commercial reasons, to try to steal information that they then can use to make money.
And do you think
we need to make it very clear, whether it's Russia, China, Iran, or anybody else, the United States has much greater capacity, and we are not going to sit idly by and permit state actors to go after our information, our private sector information or our public sector information.
Right. And do you think that using private servers to send classified emails from your basement would make America on a cybersecurity level more or less safe? That make us more or less?
That's us.
Stay tuned for more fact checks of Hillary Clinton in real time. That didn't happen. No, really, it gets worse. Stay tuned.
Get excited. Here we go.
I am tweeting out that we are debunking the Adam Ruins Everything because people were asking us on the border wall. I'm tweeting this out right now. You can hear me second hour for those listening terrestrially. Not gay Jared, legal obligations, all that stuff.
All that good stuff about the obligations.
All
and
right,
such.
there. Austin Petersen. Cool guy. Actually, it's fitting that it follows because he's a big proponent of sort of immigration. That's why I can't get on board with someone like Austin Petersen, this multiculturalism, this feigning sort of, who cares about the borders and immigration is great for the United States, not as it exists. And I sometimes I think that, I'm not saying he does this, but when people on the right who are trying to virtue signal with that stuff, they're being intellectually dishonest. The current state of immigration with the United States, illegal immigration with Mexico, is a horrendous problem. Everyone knows it. That's the single issue that is helping Donald Trump. That's the biggest issue helping Donald Trump, is that people think he'll do something about that. People are
because I think more people relate to that even more than like the trade issues and things like that. People seem, I think, as general, less informed. They kind of grasp the whole immigration problem better than
the general populace.
General populace.
Yeah. They're not necessarily Trump voters, but Hillary voters. The general voting doesn't know a whole lot about trade policy, doesn't know a whole lot about the tax code beyond what affects them directly. But there's so many day-to-day interactions with the immigration situation, especially in southern states. People are frustrated. By the way, Andrew Bogut will be on next. And
Christopher Titus.
And
Donald Trump himself.
LeBron James got into hot water this week. Let's just hit these really quickly because he said all lives matter. Was entirely reasonable. He said, hey, we'll talk about that with Andrew Bogut. Anyway, see what his opinion on the outrage is silly. Ben Shapiro is being sued by Clockboy.
He is truly the gift that keeps on giving.
Ben, I feel because that's going to be expensive.
It will be, yeah.
So Ben, I'm not making light of it. I feel bad for you. But that is hysterical. And of course, that's all he does is sue. That's all the kid knows how to do is sue.
For all I know, we have a lawsuit on us.
We couldn't know. Didn't make it to the P.O. box
That's
yet.
Okay.
You have no idea. So we don't have a ton of time. So this video is going viral right now. I want to get to this first. Adam Ruins Everything is a show. I've actually really liked Adam Ruins Everything on quite a few things. They've taken some sort of, I guess, libertarian stances. Sometimes they're kind of social justice leftist, but generally speaking, it's pretty informative. This is one where they were completely wrong, and not even realizing how wrong they were. This comes from College Humor. It's a show on, what is it? What's the network? It's also on TV.
I think it's on True TV.
True TV. One of those kind of hotel-only stations.
Yeah.
That I don't think many people watch. And, if you're listening to it, it could sound plausible, what he says, but I've got some information here that might just smack you over the head. So let's roll the first clip.
La verdad es que la pared no lograría nada. Building a wall would actually increase the number of illegal immigrants in America.
Nope.
What? How could it possibly?
Here, I'll show you.
And he goes
on from there. So first off, that is not true. Let me tell you something here. A book that I recommend. It's up on my page, Stolen Sovereignty, How to Stop Unelected Judges from Transforming America. Daniel Horowitz. Forward by Mark Levin. He talks about illegal immigration quite a bit in a way that is very informative and very enlightening. So I would recommend putting that in your reference book. Do we have the first clip where he talks about the percentage of immigration? Is that the first clip?
I think the first one is NASA.
Oh, okay, let's go to that one. So here, let's go point by point.
Yes, they are, because it's estimated that between 27 and 40% of all undocumented immigrants in America came here on planes.
Okay. Here's something, and that's just said so flippantly, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, building a wall because 27 to 40% of our people coming on planes, he goes on to say, overstaying their visas. Got it. Have you done the math yet? That means at minimum 60% of illegal immigration doesn't occur from planes and visas.
Some would call that a majority,
Up to 73%. At least not planes and visas. So here's the deal. Does it mean that a wall will fix everything? No one's saying that. But if you could have some sort of an effect on, let's use the most conservative figure, 60% of illegal immigration by his own admission, how is that not significant enough to build a wall? This is what the left does. They try, again, it's just one of those things like Anthony Cumia was saying was, well, you think a wall's going to do anything? You think it's going to do anything if it's only 60 to 73% of illegal immigration? Yes. Yes, I do. I think we should, if you had, Joe Rogan talks about this, if you had a ham sandwich that was 60% crap and 40% ham, you'd probably do something about the crap. It's still 60% crap. So the number there right off the bat.
It's like most hot dogs. That's the percentage.
That's just true. The number right there right off the bat should concern you. It debunks the entire argument. If you believe that even curbing that pesky little 60 to 70% is worthwhile, you don't even need to watch the rest of the video. I do. I assume many of you do. Let's assume you say, you know what? I'll give them 60 to 70%. Continue. Next clip.
It would easily be one of the single most expensive pieces of infrastructure in American history, costing as much as 20 Hoover dams or NASA's entire annual budget.
Just an annual budget?
So not that
Just
much.
one?
One annual budget? This is supposed to turn us off?
I say we turn NASA off for a year.
Turn NASA off. Just throttle
Clock
it
out.
for a year, like the UN will do with the internet.
Yep.
Throttle it a little bit and just start putting up the wall. It is that's not that expensive, particularly when you look at the economic ramifications. Positive ones when you stop illegal immigration. Next clip.
Even by your estimate of visa overstays, the wall would still stop about half of America's 11 million illegal immigrants.
No, it wouldn't, because of a little something called circular flow. Here, I'll show you.
Incorrect. I'll tell you why. Keep going.
For decades, immigration to the U.S. was a circular flow. People would come, work for a bit, and then after they were done, go home to their families.
A, that's not entirely true, and B, that's morally reprehensible. That was never what America was intended to be. It wasn't intended to be a revolving door so people could come in, abuse a system, and leave. You don't come to a country to drain from the country to send to other countries. That's not how a country works. That's not being ethnocentric. That's not being xenophobic. That's called having a country, okay? Something else, it's very different. This is the thing with Austin Petersen and libertarians. The revolving door, they talk about people coming in revolving door to work and send back benefits. A, that's not right. You don't get to do that. You move here legally, period, right? We've already covered that. But the revolving door for work is very different from a revolving door for entitlements. Mm-hmm. People are going through the revolving door right now and not paying for health care and not paying taxes and getting all of the social benefits, the benefits from the social safety net from hardworking Americans. It's never supposed to be a revolving door. And it's worse now because a lot of illegal immigrants aren't really coming here to work. Not all of them, but many of them are coming here and they're taking more than they're giving.
It's not like working in New York and then living in New Jersey.
No, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. Next clip.
It's counterintuitive, but building a wall wouldn't stop people from coming in. It would actually stop them from going back.
No, that's not true. Next clip.
The number of illegal border crossings is actually at an all-time low.
No, that's not true. I have it up right here. Washington Examiner. Illegal border crossings by children and families are surging again and will put the fiscal year of 2016 on par with 2014. There's a chart for you. Here's why. Listen, at a certain point, of course, immigration is going to start slowing down because Mexico has dumped a tenth. 10% of its population have moved to the United States. So at a certain point, you're going to hit a critical mass of how many people can leave their crappy country to a better country, the United States. 10%, 12, maybe it'll go back to 8. It'll hover around there. Now, here's why this chart occurred. Because of all, actually, the deportations as they've plummeted, more people have been coming back in. And now we're facing the surge that we had in 2014. So the inverse is true of what they've said. As deportations have plummeted, as Barack Obama tried to act, and really what's happened is people are being treated more humanely they would. There's now all of a sudden we see this. You can see this sort of like a fat caterpillar in the graph. We have a problem with illegal immigration again, of course, and the problems that come with that. Draining on the system, the problem of the social safety net, of fiscal responsibility. Do we have more clips?
We have to close.
Okay, let's see the close, and then I'll close.
Oh my God, Adam, you're right. The wall isn't the answer.
Oh, good. I'm so glad I could help.
Millions of people are already here. We need to deport them. Yes, deportation is the answer.
No.
All right, there you go. Because of course it's racist to deport people who've broken the law to come here illegally. Again, that's that sleight of hand. It starts off with, well, it would only help with maybe half, maybe 60, 73%. And so if you just hear that, you don't even think about it. You're thinking you heard 10%. You go, well, then that's silly. Why would we spend the whole NASA budget to stop 10%? No, you're spending actually a very reasonable budget, and we can get Mexico to pay for at least a portion of it if you look at the actual plans and tariffs and what you can do with the transfer of money. Donald Trump isn't completely unrealistic to get them to pay for a portion of it. You can pay for that. It's realistic, and that would deal with 60 to 70 something percent of illegal immigration. But if you don't understand what you're hearing, you go along with them down that logic trail and you follow them with false stat, false idea, false narrative to the point where deportation is racist, and you get to call Donald Trump or people like us racist, people like me who come from legal immigrants like my mom who learned the language, who pay taxes, who are active contributing citizens because Adam Conover told you. Here's something too. This idea that we don't take in enough legal immigrants, it's just not true. It's not even close. 50% of all immigrants since 1965 have come from Latin America, 29 from Mexico alone. That's not even taking into account people who come here illegally, who overstay visas. More people have come to the United States from Mexico than any other country in our modern history, okay? Over the past 44 years, I have these numbers. 6.65 million people have emigrated legally to the United States, compared to the previous world record holder, Italy, 4.5 million. It's not even close. This idea that we don't take enough Mexicans in legally, that it's incredibly hard. More legal people have come to the United States from Mexico by an unbelievable margin. It can be done. It's been done from Mexico more than any other country, and of course it's been done by plenty of other countries. So building a wall, beefing up the security, well, you have to decide, is it worth it to spend a relatively small amount to stop 60 to 70% of illegal immigration? I don't know. I leave that to you. We'll be right back.
Hey, Jared, what are you doing?
Shooting bad guys.
With what?
By AR-15.
Where'd you get it?
AR-15.com.
Enunciate it more clearly so our audience can hear.
AR-15.com.
That's better. They sell guns now?
Yeah, they do.
Are they any good?
They're the best.
Where from?
AR-15.com. Kapoo. Kapish.
You really make that sound?
Didn't have the budget for sound effects. Kapoo. Kapow.
Oh, there's another one.
Kapow.
You got him! With what?
By AR-15.
From where?
AR-15.com.
Hey, how do you know they're bad guys?
Turbans and burkas. Kapoo!
That's racist!
And now, Lester Holt finds himself in a pickle. Hey, guys! What are you doing?
What's that albino Indian dude? I don't know. I think you're talking to.
What's going on, brothers?
What? Did he just say brother?
Yeah, I think he did. Yes, you there. I'm talking to you boys. My Negroes.
What? Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. No, I think I definitely gonna have to kick his ass.
Yeah, I'll probably shoot him.
This has been Lester Holt finds himself in a pickle.
Glad to be back. Andrew Bogut coming up next.
Yep.
A-lister. You're not
World
a fan,
champ.
though. You're a fan of the Cavs. So we'll...
I can see myself being a fan of Andrew Bogut, though. Especially he's not with Golden State anymore. He's in Dallas.
He is in Dallas, and he doesn't like the social justice warriors.
Oh.
Before I get to the next issue, a lot of people are asking for us to get that Adam Conover rant on, or the Emma Watson rant on the YouTubes afterward as its own segment. I put up a poll before. Okay, were you happy with Donald Trump's performance? 1,300 people voted in less than a half hour. 31% yes, 40% said no. 29% said needs more stamina, which of course probably means no.
Most likely, yeah.
We got to stop skewing the results with those.
We do indeed.
Yep. Okay, there you go. That gives you, listen, our readers here tend to be pretty impartial with that. They obviously would prefer Trump over Hillary Clinton. The general consensus is he didn't do that great in the debate. So I don't think it does anyone any favors to lie to yourselves about it.
No.
It's like disciplining a child. Listen, you didn't do well. There are some changes he can make to improve. If people just tell him it's like that corner man, you're great, no one can touch you, kid, and they're getting beaten up. You're doing beautiful. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. And it's like he's losing.
I got a D on my report. Looks like an A to me, kid.
Yeah. It's a D. Just put a line in the middle. It's a B. You're golden. No one can touch you. So, okay. Anyways, talking about that, we don't have video, right? We
have a video intro.
Oh, we have a video intro.
I can set it up.
Okay, this was Ariel Winter from Modern Family. My wife loves that show. I kind of like the show. She is the worst part of the show, and I'm not just saying that because now I can't stand her. She's always been the weak link, and I just feel that this isn't... By the way, if you have children listening, we never self-censor, but I was, fun enough, on the Alex Jones show. They invited me on, and a lot of people don't know how to handle that. Listen, I go on anyone's show, whether it's left or right, and he's been very friendly with me, even though we disagree on a lot. His kid listens to this program, watches this program. A lot of people tell me, hey, my 12-year-old watches or listens. Now, we're never going to cater to them, and we've never done a show that's really anything much more severe than I guess, PG-13. Like we said, it's just our choice of program. Mm-hmm. However, there are some things that they probably shouldn't hear if you don't want them. So this next segment, probably if your kids are in, fair warning. Ariel Winter has been a subject of a lot of discussion this week. Let's roll this clip to set it up. What are we doing here? Oh, we're running it there through the computer?
It's trying
Is it trying to load it?
It's trying to
All
load
right,
it.
let me know when it's up, and when we're ready, just give me a hand signal. She took some revealing pictures, I guess you would say, on Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is, and people commented, lots of positive, lots of negative, and so it became an entire commentary on whether the internet is sexist and how men react to it, and about body shaming. Do we have the clip?
It's time to reload. It doesn't like this clip at all.
All right, then we just want to go to the images?
Yeah, go to the image.
Let's go to the image. Okay, so this was the image that she put up. For those listening terrestrially, okay, look at that picture. Listen, there's one thing you see when you look at that picture.
It's a great birthday cake.
They put that as a great birthday cake.
Fantastic.
They put up that
birthday
picture,
cake.
and it was all... Can you just show us the next picture real quick, just so we can see it?
Yep.
Here's the next picture that she put up on Instagram. Okay, those, but what was the other one where it was her in the little jeans?
That was the ones I got there. It's in the video.
Okay, it's in the video. So she put up these ultra-revealing pictures, and I guess some people commented in sexually ways and saying, hey, don't worry, this is just the industry. It's sexism. Here's the deal. It's not sexism. Okay, let me explain something. This is actually worse. It's more unfair to men. And let me give you a little bit of a reality check, okay? Ariel Winter and people who think she's brave. By the way, I love how they talk about body shaming. Like, I'm proud of my body. And they take a picture where they've clearly taken 12 takes with all the Instagram filters. Let me change the shadow and the vignette. Let me change the contrast. No puppy filter, no puppy. And they're doing the vacuum stomach pose like Frank Zane circa Mr. Olympia. And body No, they're not just showing the frumpy picture of them in a bikini from paparazzi. It's their best possible pose to say they're proud of their body. They're just as vain. The problem with this is it's vanity, it's shallow, everything disguised as though it's female pride. So she puts these pictures up. People respond. People say it's sexist. Here's the deal. If a guy says, show me your boobs, is that sexist? That doesn't mean he hates women, but it's at the very least inappropriate, ungentlemanly, say misogynistic. Sure, you shouldn't do that. However, if, like this woman, the lady comes up, or Ariel Winter, and says, here are my tits, and a man says, I approve or disapproves, as you see with comments on the internet. I like said tits. Sorry, like I said, get your kids out of the room when we're talking about this. By the way, almost always if you're showing your boobs, you have to have a big swing and a miss for the feedback to not be positive, okay? We're fans of the boobs. You're graded on a curve, quite literally. The feedback was... From some people, hey, you look great, very sexual, and some people said, put some clothes on. Here's the deal. You're the one who sexualized it. That is what men will see. You can't get angry if they respond in a sexual way when you say, here are my tits. There's nothing unnatural. Now, I'm not saying men should sexually assault or act on these urges, but this was met when you upload these pictures. I'm telling you, behind the scenes with one of two reactions from men. Either fathers who have daughters across the world groaning because they can't let their daughter follow Ariel Winter on Instagram anymore, or the sound of personal skin-on-skin contact for a bunch of teenagers in their bedrooms who are fans of Ariel Winter. We try and whitewash this like this is a sexy picture on Instagram or Snapchat. Oh, they have a picture of Ariel Winter above their bed. Let me tell you, do you have any idea how disgusting, how awful it is what teenage boys are doing with pictures like this in their bedroom? Okay, look at this. Come on. Do you know it is, let's be real about it. It's not an art critique. These people aren't looking and examining. It's masturbatorial material for tweens who watch Modern Family. Do you have an idea how disgusting the actual physical uses are for these posters that are printed out at Kinko's, and you're mad about a comment on Instagram? You have no idea as to how disgusting the teenage boy male mind is. I'm not excusing sexual assault at all, but it's like if you put a piece of bacon on a dog's nose and he's the most well-behaved dog and he sits there, not saying he can eat the bacon, but you laugh or say he's a bad dog because he's drooling at the bacon. You upload a picture of your tits. Here are my titties. And a guy saying, I like those breasts, and then you accuse him of being sexist, and then say, we're going to stay strong, no body shaming. Here's an idea. How about learning something? How about reading a book? How about learning to act and stop being the weakest link on Modern Family to begin with? Then you can show people your tits and accuse them of being sexist. It is so crazy, and young men are just constantly guilted. It is such a bait and trap for young men. Here are my breasts, and then they reprimand young men for liking that they get to look at breasts. Of course! Older men like looking at breasts. But that's feminism now. Sexualize yourself and blame the men who react sexually. Andrew Bogut?
Andrew Bogut.
Andrew Bogut coming up next.
Mercy.
This will be more fun.
And now phone calls between Sean Hannity and Donald Trump.
Hello?
Hey there, Donald. I just want to make sure to tell you that you had a great debate. The polls all have you ahead.
Okay, thanks. That's great.
And I want to say, Donald, that we're definitely against the war in Iraq.
Uh-huh.
Yep. You're definitely against the war. So, what are you wearing?
Sean, what the hell is wrong with you? It's 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? I gotta go.
Sure. I'll call back. You're a great American.
Shut up!
All right, glad to be back. This guest, we have an A-lister here, not Gay Jared.
We do.
I don't know what happened. Story behind it, of course, you can follow him on Twitter. You know who he is. He's one of the best at putting the balls in the hoops in the world.
You're such a fan,
Andrew Bogut. Thank you for being here, sir.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
I can't believe that you are here after the fiasco that occurred through our direct messages. Do you remember that, or is it just more embarrassing for me?
Somewhat. Yeah, somewhat. I kind of figured it was a gaffe, but...
No, it was. It wasn't a gaffe. Jared told me, he's like, hey, Andrew Bogut follows you. It would be great to get him on the show. I said, okay. Full disclosure, I don't watch basketball at all. I've since watched your playing. Very impressive. So he goes, yeah, he's in the playoffs right now, and he's playing against the Cavs. And then Jared said, yeah, they just won, talking about the Cavs. And so I messaged Andrew Bogut saying, hey, we'd love to get you on. Congrats on the big win. And I get a text from Not Gay Jared with the most expletives I've ever seen. He's like, you effing idiot! You blew it! You blew it!
It's like 1 a.m. I just happened to see it before I went to bed. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, all good.
Well,
all good. I went to my safe space. And had some waters and calmed down.
I mean, looking back, if you thought that was deliberate, that would be as brilliant a dick move as one could pull off.
That's something I would do. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it would have been. And unfortunately, it's just I'm a total moron when it comes to that. So, no, we're glad to have you on. Now, what did strike me, you know, I have a bunch of like these celebrities sometimes who follow me. Like, why is Candace Cameron following me? Your Twitter profile, does it say, what does it say? Pissing off SJWs? Triggering SJWs.
Yeah, that's what it was for a while.
Not a popular...
Triggered by social justice warriors' privilege was exact.
Okay. Not necessarily a popular move, I would imagine, in today's PC sports culture. What made you feel compelled to put that on the profile?
I just like getting them riled up. I think it's just good fun. You know, Twitter's a cesspool of cesspools, first off. But you know, everyone's got an opinion on something, and that should be more than respected. But obviously, with certain people, if you know, if your opinion is not along their route, you're in some trouble.
Well, it's funny. One thing I will say, obviously, if you detect a hint of accent there, I believe he's Australian. Truthfully, Americans can't tell the difference between Australian and New Zealand. They don't know the difference. There you go. I always get the sense a lot of other people, you know, from Europe, they're anti-American. With Australians, I've spent a lot of time with them, comedy festivals and the like. They don't seem to have that complex. It seems to be pretty friendly. Am I just a silly American, or is it reciprocated?
Oh, we definitely make fun of Americans just like Americans make fun of Australians. So we have a pretty dry sense of humor, and we can, you know, you got to be able to laugh at yourself before you can laugh at other people. And I feel like we both have a good sense of humor in that sense, but very similar attitudes when it comes to that stuff.
We don't really make fun of Australia. You guys don't come up that much.
Steve Irwin and what's the restaurant, the Outback? I get all that stuff all the time.
Yes, Outback. By the way, have you been to Outback Steakhouse? On a scale from 1 to 10, how offensive is it?
It's very triggering. I'm out of there with a panic attack a lot of times.
Oh, it is awful.
Cultural appropriation is just ridiculous in that place.
Yes, I assume that the bloomin' onion is a native dish to Australia.
Yeah, very much so.
Yes, and it grows, as you see out here amidst our safari. That is the bloomin' onion field. And I will say this, though, the social justice, because Australians are typically going to be more liberal anyways than Americans. It's just kind of the nature. So social justice warriors, do they exist, this politically correct, offended by everything? Do they exist in Australia the same way they do here?
Yeah, I think they exist everywhere. I mean, that's just a part of the world today. Like I said, if you don't agree with what the mainstream or, you know, what the majority is saying, obviously you'll get labeled whatever, and people will say that you're not a nice guy or an asshole. And I'm more than frankly okay with being called an asshole. I have principles that I stick to, and I have opinions which may be wrong or right, and I expect, you know, when you put an opinion out that you're gonna have some positives and some negatives, and that's a part of putting out an opinion. But you know, I just can't relate to people that deny other people's right to have an opinion and then say it's wrong when it's simply an opinion.
Well, now, how did you come to that? Because you're coming from Australia, where it's obviously not like this American right wing. You're playing in the NBA, where, you know, most people are obviously African American, or people tend to lean to the left. They discipline people for being politically incorrect. How does an Australian basketball player come to these principles and opinions? You must know you're an anomaly in that sense.
Yeah, but first off, look, politics is politics. I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm not middle. I have opinions on certain issues, but I think it's just a matter of being you. A lot of people, you know, I tweeted a while ago, whatever happens with this election, whichever way it goes here in the States, when we have an election in Australia, you still got to get up in the morning and go to work. You still have to take your kids to school, you still have to pick your kids up, you still have to feed your kids, you have to go grocery shopping. You know, people that lose friends and family over politicians and politics, I feel sorry for those people, because it's a huge mistake. Those politicians, you know, whatever side they're on, couldn't care. They don't really care about you deep down inside, you know, and that's what frustrates me with the whole system.
Right. Well, I think his video turned off. Can he still hear us, Andrew Bogut? Is Andrew Bogut still there? Did we lose him?
Yeah, we're bringing him back here.
We're bringing back Andrew Bogut. Hold on one second here. We might have lost the...
yeah, there you go. I'm back.
All right, there you go. Okay, we lost you for a second. Damn that...
Hotel internet's not great.
Damn that jet-setting lifestyle. It's almost like you're a professional athlete. So you're right about that. It shouldn't be that way. But is that maybe where you come on the social justice warrior side, why they're so obnoxious? Because they will cut you out just for having the wrong opinion. I mean, it used to be you could be left, you could be right. Free speech was something we all agreed on. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, and that's what frustrates a lot of people with that kind of stuff. Whether, like I said, an opinion is not necessarily right or wrong, but it's someone's opinion. I'd rather know, if I ask somebody if they like me or not, I'd rather them tell me, yeah, I don't like you. I just won't hang out with you anymore. I don't want to hear, this, that, and that's kind of the answer that you have to give these days. And I'm kind of from that older era of just tell it like it is, and I'd rather that. Know where I stand and we move on. But like I said, I'm from a family that's a laborer's family. That my dad was a laborer, and I grew up around mechanical workshops and everyday people. So, whenever I do have opinions, it's always $. So, that's just a part of it on Twitter, and that's why you got to have fun with it.
Well, okay, so a good example, obviously, this week, LeBron. I don't know if you followed what he just said about the Black Lives Matter. He came out and he said, I respect what Colin Kaepernick did. I understand where he's coming from, and he made some comments saying, I don't know if my son gets pulled over, what the outcome is going to be. He misused some words, created some words that didn't exist, like conversate. Let's be fair. But then he said, but I would stand for the anthem. It's not just about Black Lives Matter. They're not all cops are bad. All lives do matter. We need to come together, and all lives do matter. And oh my gosh, the outrage at this. Have you even been experiencing some wake from that? It seems like that's shaking the world, just saying all lives matter from LeBron James.
I didn't see the LeBron comments, to be quite honest with you. But look, that's his opinion. I mean, he has every right, as Colin does, not to stand for the anthem, to give his opinion. And obviously some people won't agree with what he said, but at least he's being honest. It's very refreshing to see that. He's the best athlete currently in the world, probably, and best basketball player anyway. And to give that opinion, he's stepping on some people's toes. But at the same time, you got to respect that.
Well, he's not even really stepping. He couldn't have been more diplomatic, is my point. Because if he's being diplomatic about it and people get mad, I mean, you haven't got a shot, right? Big, tall, white Australian. You're dead in the water before you even speak. He was saying, hey, I understand Kaepernick. I understand what's happening. I understand that there could be some bad cops. He appealed to kind of the social justice left talk. And then he just said, but not all cops are bad, and we need to come together on this. Like, it's not, if he just came out and said, screw Black Lives Matter, I could get the reaction. But this is a reaction from people who are furious that he just didn't go full tilt in with Sean King. And I wonder if you feel like that's common with other NBA players, because a lot of them jumped on him, or fans, if that's been your experience, or if it's just the press blowing it up.
Like you said, I don't really have my opinion's not too valid in it because I'm born overseas. I'm a foreigner. I haven't grown up experiencing what a lot of teammates have told me that they experienced. So it's hard for me to get into that. But like I said, I just hope we get to a point, not just in America but Australia, realize that everyone's a human being, and hey, if someone's got good qualities, it doesn't matter what uniform they're wearing or what their skin color is. That's how I look at it. If someone's a good person, they're a good person. And I think we get in trouble, once we start, inciting violence with protests and stuff like that. I'm more than respectful of what Colin's doing because he's doing it in a peaceful way. It's causing attention. It's bringing it up in the mainstream media. We're talking about it right now. What I'm against is protests that people get hurt,
right?
Shot. People's businesses get damaged.
You've been in both cities. You were in Milwaukee for a while, and now Dallas. So you're getting the worst of both ends of that.
Yeah, and it's just there's people that get affected by that kind of stuff, and deaths and beatings and all that kind of stuff on both sides. The rebuttal that I'll get is that police are doing that to everyday African Americans that are just minding their own business. So, like I said, when it comes to violence, it's just so disappointing that people's families get taken away from them. Kids are dying. People's businesses they're losing, and I don't think that's accomplishing anything. I think I respect Colin's stance just because at least he's got people talking and he hasn't hurt anybody, along the way. and that's.
Well, I think is it the NBA? Larry Elder was talking. Wasn't there a guy who was fined in the NBA for not standing for the national anthem? What Jared was
blackboard. Yeah, blackboard. He Mohammed Abdul-Rauf. Yeah, he that was in the mid '90s, I believe. He went through all sorts, and then after that season, he basically was a journeyman. He was a very good and very talented player, and he did that back in the day, and his career was basically over after that. No one wanted to touch him.
That's true. And Meta World Peace punched guys in the face and didn't get as much backlash. You got Patrick Ewing and Meta World. What is it? Meta World Data or Meta World Peace? What was it?
I don't remember.
Peace.
Did you ever have any
bad about him because he might find me, but
have you ever had any run-ins with him?
No, nothing too bad. I try to. That's probably one of the few guys that I try to stay away from. We had the same agent for a while, so we kind of had some sort of a bond. I'd like to think where he didn't mess with me too much.
I can't imagine a 6'11" guy shies away from too much confrontation, but I guess it happens.
Why? You think he's just crazy? He got crazy eyes? You think he might go after you?
A little bit, but there's like I said, in pro sports, there's a lot of bravado and a lot of acting when the cameras and the lights are on, but. There's probably a handful, I'd say, in the league that you probably shouldn't push their buttons too much.
Yeah, I think a lot of that goes. This is the part where Andrew Bogut never comes back on the show. I think it changes with basketball because there isn't the same accountability as like in hockey or combat sports. So some guys can hide behind. You don't, because I've watched you play. You're a pretty aggressive player. You stand your ground, put it that way. Whereas in hockey, you punch out a fan or you talk. You're going to get into a fight, and people are going to find out really quickly. You don't hide behind an agent.
Yeah. Which sometimes is a good thing,
I love it.
A quick minute in an NBA game where you can kind of just sort things out, but. That'll happen every other quarter these days. Nothing ever happens. Look in our league, there's a lot of holding, pushing, and then everyone runs in, and then once someone runs in to hold you back, then all of a sudden you want to run through that guy, and that's just how it goes in our league.
Yeah, I know. I see that a lot, and that is where like hockey players. It's not quite to the level of soccer, but Canadian hockey players watch it and like. What is this? Like, ref, just let them go. Let the two guys go. Put them in the penalty box, and you can't go out of bounds. Yeah, because I saw you though a couple times, guys slapping you and getting mad just because I don't know the basketball thing, but he was standing his ground, and I saw a video. I don't know what it was. Some guy like reached out and smacked me. Who was that?
I don't know. There's been a long list. So I take it. I'll be the first to tell you that. I play physical brand of basketball, but I'm not going to take a step back as most guys won't in our league. But you just need to be careful that it doesn't end up into a boxing match. If they start allowing too much, all of a sudden, there was times where some of the NBA games in the 90s spilled over into the front row, and that's what the NBA obviously tries to avoid.
All right, we'll hold it, and we will talk more about this after. Andrew Bogut, don't piss him off. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
For breaking news on Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson. We take you now live to a press conference where NBA's own LeBron James is discussing the current state of police enforcement, race relations, and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, we love you, LeBron.
You're the best ever.
I love you. Yeah, you're the greatest.
I love you so much, LeBron. Michael Jordan ain't shit.
I want to get your name tattooed. Sign my baby.
Well, for sure, I recognize the problems with the policing community and people like my son. If they get pulled over, I'm not sure, if that's going to go down in a negative way.
That's right. Black Lives Matter.
But the police. So I understand and respect what Colin Kaepernick is doing. I will myself always stand for the national anthem. And I do think it's important to continue to conversate about this discussion and understand it's not just about black or white or race, that really all lives matter.
What the
Traitor!
You don't even care about
You
black
trash!
lives.
You trash! MJ will bury you!
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I call him a coon or?
No.
No, okay, that's just you. Okay, that's fine. That's just you. You filthy! Can I say Negro?
Better not.
Okay, right. You traitorous spook! Oh, that was too much.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives... A quick and no doubt ugly turn of events. I'll keep you abreast as this story unfolds. For Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson.
want nobody. Want nobody. And I don't want nobody. You got that right. And I don't want nobody. I lost. Want nobody. And I don't want nobody. Never need. You got that right.
New bump that comes to us from Pogo, remix of The Fresh Prince. You're about that age. Were you a fan of The Fresh Prince, Bogut?
Huge fan, man. Huge fan. I thought that was an original song right there. I might be able to give you a little dance, but used to run home from school. Australia would finish at 3:30. Used to run home to catch it at 4 o'clock every day on weekdays. A great show.
There you go, when it was in syndication. You know, I was talking about that growing up. How old are you, Andrew?
I am almost 32.
Okay, so there you go. We're the same generation. Growing up, and this tells you that it goes across all cultural lines. You know, Fresh Prince was one of the biggest shows, and Family Matters. And these were two black families. One dad was a judge, and one dad was a cop. And we just watched it. We didn't even really think about it back then. And it seems like the same thing in Australia. This wasn't a black person show. It was just the most popular show, right? People loved it. It turned Will Smith into the most popular film actor of all time. Like you talked about, nowadays, that almost doesn't happen. It's like you have the BET, you have the black programming, the TBS, and then this divide. Do you feel like now in that case it's really a shifting world for young millennials because of the social justice outrage? It's divided them?
Yeah, I think the younger kids, all feel like they need to pick a side, which, you know, whether you're liberal or Republican or whatever it is, and that causes some problems, definitely. But
yeah,
as a kid growing up in Australia, I didn't think twice. The show was hilarious. You know, I'm not going to lie. I had some Wu-Tang gear and some of that kind of gear back in the day.
Did you bring the ruckus?
You know, I did bring the ruckus. You know, I was, I loved it. You know, I just was basketball culture. Obviously, is hugely immersed by hip hop and rap. So
right.
You know, I loved it. You know, it was just a part of growing up, and I didn't think twice about race, religion, or creed when it came to that stuff. If something was good and I liked it, it was, I was playing the tracks and watching the videos. And Prince of Bel-Air was #1 on the list.
Oh yeah, it was. Jared,
what?
This is a nice man.
I've had this on the whole time.
Stop it. Sorry, Andrew. Andrew, he's from. It's all they have in Cleveland. You have to understand this. He's clinging to a life raft here, so don't take it personally.
There was another Aussie on the team, and he got a ring, so
it's true.
Oh, Cleveland, it's a horrible place. You live in.
Tweet all your sponsors so you should lose all your sponsors for triggering me to my safe space.
Yes, exactly. This is not a safe space for
paychecks and your employment in the next couple of days. I'm going to go.
Not good yet. He's 6'11".
Yeah, but he's really far away. So
give me 7 foot at least. Come on.
Okay, he's 7 foot. He's 7 foot. Don't piss him off.
This is
LeBron's not here to help you.
It's not the middle finger. It's just
I don't want to take
number one.
From Dallas to work.
Okay, we're gonna have to mute that. So you're gonna just get that with the FCC so people don't know where we are. It's funny we talk about that with I won't get into the meta world peace thing, but you mentioned that Wu-Tang. I was raised in Canada. So I was born in Detroit, another terrible town, raised in Canada, and, I listened to Wu-Tang when my parents found out. They were horrified. Watched Fresh Prince. The thing is now, like you said, kids should be able to, but you can't. You see kids now, you see stories where kids get in trouble for listening to hip-hop at school because it's cultural appropriation. Or if they have Japanese food day in the cafeteria, all of a sudden there's a lawsuit because that's considered culturally insensitive. I mean, that's the social justice warrior thing. I don't think you can have just kids enjoy Fresh Prince and eat lo mein because they like it. Someone's going to get offended.
Yeah, and that's what we got to be careful, I think, as a society, because it's never going to stop. Melbourne is one of the most multicultural cities in the world. I mean, my high school alone had almost 100 different nationalities. Think about that. It was so cool talking to different kids and how they grew up with their families, the food, what they did on the weekends, what clubs they were aligned to on the weekends, and what they did in their spare time. And you just learn so much from that. You get to experience so much culture, and it's actually enriching. That's why a lot of people travel the world. So I don't understand the whole appropriation thing that, it's always done in a good, positive way. What's the problem with it? I think experiencing other cultures is a part of everyday life, and gives you some life values that you can't pay for in school or university. I think it's just never going to end with the political correctness stuff. It's just so frustrating.
I know.
If I could interject there, I just wanted to pick his brain. What's his thoughts on
What's that? Hashtag LeBron Lives Matter. Stop
just,
it with the fanboying, not Gay Jared.
To bring up.
He's a nice guest. He took the time to do this.
I know, but these are the important issues they're pertinent.
I've never met a bigger fan than him of LeBron, just so you know, Andrew. It's sad. I think
they got their ring. You know, they did a great job, and he had a great year. You know, he might be a bandwagon fan if he's following LeBron though, because he's the best player in the world. You know. But,
yeah. What are you doing?
This is my ringtone picture for you.
Oh, that one's harsh. That's a low blow.
That's a really low blow, not Kid Jared. Stop it, not Kid Jared.
That is safe space stuff right there. We need to.
This guy you have some serious nerve. I tell you what, when we are going to do the show on the road at some point, hashtag never daily though, when we go to Dallas, I will personally give you his hotel room number. And you can do with it. You can send Meta World Peace if you don't want the legal liability. He's earned it.
He's retired now too, so he might be up for it.
Well, he's looking for work, and I think someone would pay a pretty penny to watch this guy get his ass kicked. Yeah, it's funny. You talk about Melbourne that way. It really is. I think now it's at the point where you can't even appreciate different cultures, and this is where the social justice leftism, the political. You can't appreciate other cultures unless you say, also, I recognize X, Y, and Z horrible things that have happened to this culture at the hands of white people, and it really drives a wedge between people just wanting to be human beings. Ironically, for people who claim to be tolerant.
Look, man. I mean, my whole family's from Croatia, from as far back as we can go. There was a Balkan War in 1993, which was one of the biggest bloodbaths of the last 30, 40 years. So it was Serbia versus Croatia predominantly. I've got really good friends that are Serbian. And this was only 2 decades ago to throwing, bombs at each other from our families. But my friend that is Serbian is a good person. And, I take flack from that from some Croatian people, but so be it. I'm going to, if he's a good person, I'm going to do anything for him. And it comes back to the experiencing other cultures. I'm going to experience other cultures. I don't care what people say. If they think that's wrong, great.
Wow.
I thought it was wrong, but I'm still going to experience other cultures.
You need to check your Croatian privilege there, Bogut. See, you can say that, but you don't realize that Croatians have had it. They've been living high in the hog for far too long.
Yeah. Have you been over there lately?
Yes, exactly. Well, just look at the NBA. It's crawling with Croatians. Andrew Bogut, thank you so much for being with us, sir. And hold on one moment. We'll talk to you off air during the commercial break. Louder with Crowder, Andrew Bogut. That just happened. Mostly.
P-O-G.
And now phone calls between Sean Hannity and Donald Trump.
Hello?
Mr. Trump, it's Sean Hannity, and you are a great American, sir.
Oh, hey, Sean. Okay, thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
And Donald, I want to tell you that you hit the nail right on the head with what you said at the debate. You were just, as always, right on the mark.
Okay, well, frankly, I'm always at the mark, but I know what I'm on the mark, but I want to know, what do you think I'm on the mark? What are you talking about?
Well, you were right in that nobody wants to call me anymore.
Oh, okay, Sean, that's not true. Okay, you're a great American. We're both great Americans. Everyone wants to call you. Okay, it was politics. I'll call you all the time.
Oh, I know you will, Trump. I'm talking about the rest of the journalists.
How the hell with them, Sean? No, they're afraid of you, okay? Okay, guys, they're afraid of you because you're winning. You're winning so much, okay? Frankly, you're winning so much that they don't want to have anything. They know it's going to make them look bad. But I think Melania's calling me. Hey, last question. Where'd you get this new number?
You tweeted it out.
Wait, you mean that wasn't a direct message?
No, it was an @ reply.
Okay, Sean, I gotta go. Melania, get Anthony Weiner on the phone.
Glad to be back. We are terrestrially in the third hour. Third hour. Christopher Titus coming up at the bottom of the hour there.
Yep.
And we have Donald Trump coming on relatively What's that? I thought that's the trash is supposed to come on Wednesdays.
No, that's Miss Universe.
Oh.
Yeah. Safety precautions and all.
Safety first. You can never be too careful with the safety.
No.
Okay, well, let's just get right into it, I guess, pretty soon here. Hold on, let me bring up so I have everything ready. Do we have...
We're connecting here.
We're connecting. Do we have Mr. Trump? Mr. Trump, are you there?
He's not connected yet.
He's not connected yet?
No.
All right, let me know when he's connected.
Buy some time here.
All right, let me know when he's connected. We're always excited, obviously, to have Donald Trump on.
There he is.
Mr. Trump? Mr. Trump.
Of course, Crowder. I wouldn't miss it. I got to tell you.
Well, listen, I'm very glad. Let's get right into it. How do you think you performed this week at the debate?
Well, listen. Okay, I can't tell you myself, but everyone else are telling me. They say, you did such a tremendous job. People, they can't believe what a tremendous job I did. It's not what I would say. It's what they're telling me. It's unbelievable.
So then, are you saying that you disagree with the somewhat general consensus that Hillary had a stronger showing?
Excuse me, okay? That's not nice when you say that, okay? I don't like it when people say not nice things, and that's not true, okay? If you look at the polls, and I'm ahead of all the polls.
Which polls? Which polls?
www.drudgereport.com,
well,
okay?
I mean,
and that's the best site. They do, frankly, a fantastic... I
it's
got
a
to
good
tell you,
site.
the job they do on the cyber at Drudge is unbelievable. Fantastic site. Breitbart.com. CNBC.com.
But Mr. Trump, those are hardly, scientific polls. There will obviously be some bias with the readers of sites that tend to lean...
Excuse me. Okay, all of them. Every poll. Okay, every single poll. Frankly, I got to tell you, they have me winning tremendously.
Well, no, some of the more scientific polls or the actual focus groups had you performing by a significant margin more poorly.
Me.
I don't...
Okay.
I don't...
Those are rigged. All the polls are rigged. Never believe the polls.
Okay, but you just said that people
also,
should...
okay, and I didn't want to say this. I didn't, frankly, maybe I shouldn't say this.
Well,
I'm not going to say this.
Then don't say it.
My microphone was rigged.
Your microphone was rigged?
Yes. It was so rigged, you'll never believe. It was crackling horrendously. Okay, you've never heard crackling like this, frankly. I got to tell you.
So you think the crackling of the microphone had an impact?
Excuse me. I wasn't finished, okay? And I probably shouldn't say this.
Then don't.
But they couldn't hear me in the back of the room with the mic. They couldn't. I was talking. They couldn't hear me at all.
Well, I mean, that can sound like foul play. I'm not sure how that would really affect people watching on television.
On TV.
If you're talking about
Excuse me, okay? I'm still not finished, and I probably...
Sorry.
I will. I'm not... you know what? I won't say it.
Well, okay, then don't.
I was going to say it, but I said, Trump, you shouldn't say it.
Don't say it.
There was anthrax on my microphone. Anthrax.
Anthrax?
Yes. A very light dusting, but noticeable, of anthrax. Can you believe it? Unreal.
No, I don't know that I can believe that. I'm not sure that
But all of this, okay, the rigged polls, the rigged microphone, the light dusting of anthrax, it's all designed to take away attention from the fact that Hillary Clinton, okay, listen, why are we talking? Hillary Clinton wants to ship all of our jobs, okay, to all the countries.
Well, you had a strong showing when you were talking about jobs and trade. So which countries specifically let's go with that, are you talking about?
China. Okay, we're getting killed at the border. We're getting killed at the China.
Well, China's a problem for sure, but what other countries are concerned? I'd like to get into that.
They're killing us, Stephen. You never believe the China, they're all laughing at us because we don't have enough stamina. Okay, and China has better stamina, and it's terrible. It's terrible what they're doing into China. It's terrible.
Well, I can definitely see how China is a problem, Mr. Trump, but we need to definitely...
Excuse me. Okay, even that, okay, the China is distracting from the real issues that Americans, they're concerned. They tell me they're concerned. They're scared.
Well, good. Like what issues? Let's do that.
Okay, frankly, have you seen how plump Miss Universe is
Okay,
lately?
no, Mr. Trump. Let's just... Oh, actually, hold on. Before we let you go, Alec Baldwin is set to play you on SNL. What do you think about Alec Baldwin? Have you heard that?
Just announce it.
Yeah, he should lose some weight too, that fat...
Okay, let's get rid of Mr. Trump. I don't listen. I think the guy is better than Hillary, but we have to be careful with the programming.
We do.
We have to be prudent.
We do.
He seems surly.
He does. A little more than usual, if you could believe it.
He's usually more chipper.
A little more gentlemanly than that.
I'm not necessarily thrilled with how that went.
What do you think about Alec Baldwin playing the old Trump, though?
I think it's so clear with the entertainment industry now, like we talked about this. They used to say, vote or die. P. Diddy, vote or die. I know people are going to get mad that I do the accent. and they were saying, we don't care about who you vote for. Just get out and vote. Now they're saying, vote Hillary for the love of God. Alec Baldwin, this is a guy who endorsed Anthony Weiner, who considered running for office. This is a guy who is a blatant, hardcore leftist, has threatened to move to Canada. I mean, unless you're wearing sandals, you can't count how many times he's threatened to move to Canada. And they're bringing him in specifically to play Trump. That's not comedy at that point. That's agenda comedy.
Yeah.
Like Norm Macdonald has talked about. And agenda comedy can be funny. I thought Jon Stewart was funny with it.
At least Alec Baldwin's a talented guy.
He's one of the best.
Yeah.
He's one of the best, but they're bringing him in not because he's the best Trump. Yeah. They're bringing him in because it's a sting.
He's got a couple opinions.
He's got some opinions, and they think it'll be a sting with Donald Trump.
Maybe some syllables to share.
Speaking of sting, this is something that's pretty important. We were talking about this. We talked last week about how Barack Obama went in front of the UN to say that the United States needed to give up some of its rights, needed to give up some of its freedoms in order for the greater good, which is people misuse the term globalist a lot, or people just throw it out there. It's like, well, I don't like where Trump lined up on the no-fly, no-buy. You're a globalist! No, that's not. But this is an actual case if you look at the UN. One of the biggest examples, I will harp on it until the day I die, the Kyoto Protocol. That is probably the worst. Obviously, the legislation right now with the internet that Ted Cruz is fighting, and Donald Trump got in and fought with Ted Cruz. I'm really happy to see both of them coming together on that. So we've talked about the UN quite a bit. Here is, I don't know her name, so forgive me, and she's very hard to understand.
Yeah, good luck.
Here is the UN, what happened this week. They were talking about police brutality in the United States and then linked it to demanding that the United States pay reparations. Try and follow it, but it's okay if you don't.
Because obviously.
Yes.
Past injustice and crimes against African Americans need to be addressed with reparatory justice. The working group urges Congress to expedite the passing of all pending criminal justice reform bills, including the End Racial Profiling Act, the Second Chance Reauthorization Act, and welcomes the bipartisan support for the Sentencing Reform and Correction Act, with, among other things, proposed to drastically reduce the use of mandatory minimum sentencing.
Okay. If it was hard for you to understand, don't worry, it's even harder to process when you know what she said.
What hippie hoarder house did they dig her out of?
I don't know.
I could smell the marijuana from here.
But I bet you'll find a few cats.
Yes.
You'll find
stolen library books.
You'll find cats flattened like pennies on a railroad track.
She stacked boxes on top of me, then demanded reparations. This is my life. Hashtags.
So they're demanding that the United States... First, I don't think the United States should be a member of the UN. I really don't think so. Why? If someone can tweet me when you listen to the podcast, wherever you are, why should what does the United States gain from being a part of the UN? NATO, I understand. The UN, it's gotten to the point now where there's no use for them. And why does the UN get to decide what the United States does? They want to talk about... And here's the thing, too. It just shows the UN can be politicized. It's not true. More black men are not being targeted by police officers. It's not true that there is systemic racism in law enforcement in the United States. White people are more likely to be shot by police if they've committed a crime or there's an altercation. We've covered this, so it's not even factually accurate. But even if that were the case, where does the UN get off thinking they can tell the United States that you need to pay through reparations through all these social programs? And where are they, right now, where there's slavery still going on in African nations, in the Middle East? Why aren't they talking about that? They're still throwing gay people off of rooftops. You have a lisp, you're going for a flight. Why aren't they demanding reparations from the African slave traders who stole them and sold them into slavery? I'm not condoning slavery at all, whatsoever. The United States bought slaves from African countries and African slave traders, multiple African countries, or they stole them from rice paddies. We did this. I did this in a video at Berkeley where they were teaching kids about slavery. And I said, well, hold on, I have a question. They said, when the Americans stole these slaves from the old world and brought them into the new world. And I said, well, how many of these slaves, Professor, how many of these slaves were actually sold into slavery? They were actually made slaves in the old world. She said, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer to it. She was teaching the class on slavery. That guy who was there in Barack Obama when he first started the race wars, the beer summit, that professor, black guy with the fro, I forgot his name. He was the one who came out, and I've written about this, I'll find it hopefully after the break, and said about 90-something%. The lowest figure is 70-something%. The vast majority of slaves were sold into slavery in the United States. Now, horrible, obviously. Thank God we ended slavery. Thank God long before many other countries that still use slavery, right? The UN doesn't have a whole lot to say about that. Certainly not the grandstanding you see here. But if they're going to demand reparations, hint, we're not going to do it, Mrs. UN Crazy Cat Lady, why not sit there and grandstand and demand the African slave traders give that back? This just goes to show you when people say, science is foolproof. No, science, the theory is, of course, but humans are not foolproof. Human error is still a factor in science. When people say, well, international law, listen, we're talking about law here. This came from the UN. Doesn't matter. There are still people in the UN. There are crazy cat ladies like this. Is that a pashmina? What do you call that?
I don't know.
Wearing?
I don't know. Maybe it's cashmere.
Cashmere.
Georgie Porgy.
I want the cashmere. A crazy person like this, who was entirely ill-informed on the issue of law enforcement, she's read a Black Lives Matter pamphlet that was handed to her by Sean King, slipped in her P.O. box, and then she's going to sit before some committee, some trumped-up, silly committee, international committee, and tell the United States that, hey, even though you had the bloodiest war, one of the bloodiest wars in modern history to end slavery, even though other countries, you need to create socialized healthcare to make up for your racism. It's silly talk. We'll be back talking about charter schools, I think. Hey, Jared, what are you doing?
Shooting bad guys.
With what?
By AR-15.
Where'd you get it?
AR-15.com.
Enunciate it more clearly so our audience can hear.
AR-15.com.
That's better. They sell guns now?
Yeah, they do.
Are they any good?
They're the best.
Where from?
AR-15.com. Kapoo! Kapish!
You really make that sound?
Didn't have the budget for sound effects.
Oh, there's another one.
Looking at
You
like
got him. With what?
AR-15.
Okay.
From
Minute
where?
15.
AR-15.com.
Hey, how do you know they're bad
I have
guys?
notes here. We're going to
Nerds
do
and
the
burkas.
wall
Kapoo!
That's racist.
piece. I think we'll follow up on. I don't know if you saw the Never Daily hashtag, but I think someone heard about the studio.
There is a plague
How they do that?
I don't. That's the thing. I need to find out. I think it could be. Brody. So we got to make sure we just let everyone know to keep a tight lid on it until early November at least.
Yeah, we should probably talk with him.
Yeah, well, once we make the two golden ticket hires, I think I know who they're going to be. Then we can let the rest of the team know when they can start talking about the daily stuff.
That'd probably be a good time.
Are we coming back?
Yeah, that sounds.
If you feel like giving up, baby, well, don't turn around.
That was not Gay Jared's choice for song.
That's fantastic.
Wasn't my choice, but it's always to wake people up as we go toward the older portion of the program. As we get to the portion where people are tired, as we get to the portion where people are slowly fading.
This is gonna be a great program when we go Never Daily.
Is fleeting, and madness takes its toll. Speaking of madness, Christopher Titus will be on after the break.
Yep.
And speaking of madness, also, Elizabeth Warren came out against raising the cap on charter schools in Massachusetts. I have it up here on my screen. So this is something we were going to do a rebuttal with John Oliver, kind of like we just did with Adam Conover.
Yeah.
But his stuff is always so long. I think he's funny, and I think sometimes he makes some good points. But his thing on charter schools, again, it's just based on this. It's one of those things that's hard to argue because of the bait and switch they do. It's tough to kind of nail them down. So Elizabeth Warren is against charter schools. And the reason for it is because they really play on people's emotions. And they use arguments that aren't true and don't matter. If it sounds a little... let me explain it to you. There is no valid argument, none, against school choice or charter schools in the United States anymore. Mm-hmm. There's none. You look at very, very liberal filmmakers. Was it Waiting for Superman? What was that movie about that talked about teachers' unions? This is not a conservative filmmaker. Even people on the left have acknowledged that the public schooling system has failed in the United States. Yeah, it's absolutely awful. It
sucks.
And it hurts the most poor among us because they don't have a choice with public schools. There is not one valid argument against school choice or charter schools. It is entirely supported by big teachers' unions and their DNC cronies. And this idea, the poor teachers' union, no one goes into teaching for the money. Actually, yes, they do. Many people go into public education for decent money and incredible benefits and very little accountability.
Long vacations.
Yes. It is not a system that filters out people who shouldn't be doing the job. There are some great teachers, but there are some absolutely horrible ones. So Elizabeth Warren, her argument, and any article I wrote about it at louderwithcrowder.com, their main complaint is that charter schools hurt, but they hurt local public schools. Exactly. They should be hurt, local public schools. These schools, charter schools, were created to take kids out of those crappy schools. So of course it's going to hurt the crappy public schools. The only way these charter schools can take kids out of those crappy public schools, say it with me now, is if they provide better schooling. The only way the public schools are hurt is if there is an alternative school, a choice, that's better. So are we concerned about the school being hurt? Are we concerned about the teachers' union being hurt? Are we concerned about the kids' welfare and their education? So that's why it's hard to argue, because people go, oh, schools are hurt. Oh, no. And they think the schools are hurt, therefore the kids are going to be hurt, the teachers are going to be hurt. No. And this can't be just seen on a chart or a fact sheet. The school is hurt, this school, so the child can benefit.
But Steve, if we just give them some more money, they'll do better.
Right, if we just give them more money, like in Detroit. They argue, here's the thing they argue too. Well, that's a good argument. They argue that, well, if these charter schools fail, which sometimes happens with charter schools, that's what John Oliver was talking about, they turn abysmal and they close up shop. That's true. And those kids can go back to the public school.
Sounds like
it sounds
free market or something.
Meanwhile, the public, so it's true. Some charter schools take advantage of the system. For those who don't know, charter schools are basically privately contracted schools that are publicly funded. So they're given to private companies to run them like a business is the evil word. And sometimes they do a poor job. Generally, they outpace public schools in a lot of measurable standards. But let's say that's true. They're abysmal and this charter schools closes up shop. Let's go down through all of these arguments. That's true. Meanwhile, public schools are almost guaranteed to fail and be just as bad as these charter schools, but instead of closing up shop, they fire nobody and continue to be supported by taxpayers with no better options for schooling. So what's better? A bad charter school, the consequences, it closes and kids go back to the crappy public school, or just starting off with the crappy public school? It can never close, where teachers can never be fired. They complain that these charter schools are run as businesses, therefore unaccountable to their community. Again, these are feel arguments that they make. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to sort of, it's like grabbing a bar of soap. They're unaccountable to their community because they're only in it for a profit motive. What? They're just as accountable as any other school and then some. Because unlike public schools, charter schools, if they don't perform, can go under. So their accountability is that it's financially imperative for them to benefit their community, or else they cease to exist. They're running it like a business. The only way a business gets to stay in business is if they provide the service that's expected of them. Charter schools are required. They are beholden to providing a better educational experience than the public schools, or they cease to exist. And the business owner, the people who run the schools, are out of a job. Meanwhile, public schools, screw you, they get your money anyway. Their accountability is zero. None. There's no accountability. Let me give you an example. Here's something, too, by the way, that people don't talk about with charter schools. This is a total rich white privilege issue, because the kids who benefit the most are kids in inner cities who can go to schools that aren't in their crappy district. Yep. And rich white liberals, of course, are nearly always racist, and they want to help. We want to help the people of color from afar. We want to help the Detroit people of color from afar. We don't want them coming into Grosse Pointe. So they get mad with the charter schools. They hurt the most.
In fairness, it really disrupts things when they invade the Wimbledon.
And when they invade the Wimbledon, there's no better racquetball club than the public club of the Wimbledon. I hope you're strapped at the Wimbledon.
Let's talk about this. The literacy rate in poor urban areas, public schools, right? They don't have any other choices, are horrible. In Detroit, a young man is more likely to end up in prison than they are to graduate high school. So public schools and their social justice union-backed teachers have failed these communities since they've existed. It couldn't be worse, and they have plenty of money. It doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. People, and these kids in the worst school districts, again, they get the short end of the stick. Nobody's even arguing it. The only argument is over the solution. So, school choice, conservatives, libertarians, they're advocating school choice and rewarding innovative, well-performing charter schools or attaching a voucher to the child. Democrats, like Elizabeth Warren, advocate more money to the system that's already failing. That's it. More money, please, more money, please, more money, please. There's no valid argument. Everything that could occur in a public school that could be, in a charter school that could be a problem, occurs in a public school, and then some with zero accountability. So why are they so hell-bent on destroying school choice and just handing over more money to a failed system? Well, listen, look at the top political donors and look at the public sector unions, and at least the Democrats get their job security, right? Screw the kid, we have to help the schools. Why? More votes, more money, more unions.
Christopher Titus.
Oh, Christopher Titus next.
And now, Samantha Bee says vagina. What will that broad say next? Stay tuned for more. Samantha Bee says vagina.
All right, we're glad to have this guest back. I take some pride in this, that everyone who's ever been on the program with whom I disagree has either been back or has wanted to come back. Sorry, I didn't ask you. What's the best plug for you, Chris?
The best plug for me? What I've done or what's coming up?
Well, where should people find you?
You can go to at Titus Nation on Twitter. You can go to The Real Christopher Titus, and there's a new comedy special coming out in a couple months called Born with a Defect. We're finishing that right now.
Okay, so there you go. Well, Christopher Titus, for those who didn't catch on yet. I wanted to you were talking about off air the debate that we had on gun control. So
I literally don't think we can call it a debate.
Not so much.
Two swinging alpha males yelling at each other. Honestly, if we both needed orangutan fur, I thought at one point, because we were just both yelling at each other. If we could have thrown poop over Skype, I think we would have. It was the stupidest, weirdest thing.
Could have brought in Harambe as a moderator.
Exactly. It was.
I was this. You were on a hair trigger, and I was, because before that interview, people don't know, before that interview, we tried to call Chris, and he admits he had the time wrong, and then we had to bump him when we rearranged because we had another guest call in late, and so he was like, why is it...
It got off to the worst foot
possible. It got off to the worst start, and I will say it was not my proudest moment. A lot more yelling than I typically like, and we were like, we have to bring him back.
Yeah, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you calling it. And, I think I put it off for a while because I was like, it was so weird to see that the responses to it. There was psychotic response. Like, it's amazing to see your extreme fans, my extreme fans, and how far they will go and what they will say. And I started to think... whenever I do something like this, I never want to be part of the din. I don't want to be part of the. I don't want to be part of the problem, which is the idiots on TV yelling at each other. And then I was doing it with you, and I walked away. I didn't even care that. I didn't even care that whether winning the debate, losing the debate, that didn't bother me. What bothered me was the behavior during it. It was you and I were just screaming at each other. So. What I just want to say that we've got to this place, and this is why we're currently in the situation now, I believe, in the country with who's running for president, because the divides are so deep, the chasm is so big that what's going to happen is that we end up coming up with these extreme people. Like, I tell you what, if Elon Musk and Mitt Romney were running, I think we'd all be a lot happier. Don't you?
I'm not a fan of either of them a ton, but I can see where you're coming from. Like, here's the thing, though. That's a good point. And by the way, like I said, I take responsibility. Jared knew I was pissed off too. Like, I was here. I was like, what is he saying? We booked him 3 hours ago. It's not my fault. We were both angry with Mitt Romney. Here's the deal with Donald Trump. They're lobbing out these accusations now. Some of the criticism may or may not be valid. However, the left has lobbed these same criticisms and screamed them. They did the same thing with Bush, McCain, Romney. Romney was a racist, he was a sexist, he was an evil person, and like you're saying right now, even though I don't like him on some policy, no one can really believe Mitt Romney's a racist, evil, bad guy.
No, even and it's funny because my wife and I were watching the speech he came out and gave out Trump, and I watched the whole thing, and it was I had this moment of like, wow, this guy seems like an adult. He actually stood for something, stood in the face of everybody getting mad at him on his side,
right?
And he said, no, this is what I believe. I'm going to stand my ground. And I thought, well, that's a dude. I may not believe him or like him all the time, but that's a dude I could say, okay, I know the country's not going to burn down, and that's that worries me a little bit right now is that we've got. You know, whatever you think about Hillary, at least she's done some stuff. I just, again, when I watched Trump, I thought, oh, that's me and Crowder. At the debate, I thought, oh, that's me and Crowder. He's acting like me and Crowder. and so I won't be doing that again.
Did I ask you a question? I got to answer. Yeah. Did I ask you a question? I'm going to answer your question. Yeah,
Believe me. I don't believe you at all.
That was our drinking game.
If you had a
This is important. This is important.
Our drinking game was every time he mentions China, Mexico says, frankly, truthfully, believe me, and Not Gay Jared is not a big man, and he was hammered. Absolutely hammered.
Was not. I would have been.
Here's the thing. Anybody who has to, like, it's almost like he wants, I've never seen someone over-enunciate, worse, except for John Lovett's character when he was the theater guy. You know, China. In China. What are you doing? Do we get it?
It requires stamina. You know what probably happened is he mispronounced it once.
My son walked around school saying stamina all day.
And obviously I think the idea of Hillary is just awful, Hillary Clinton. I think you're talking about a known serial liar, corrupt politician defined. I haven't been a huge, everyone knows I wasn't a huge Trump fan in the primary. I don't think he had a great debate performance. I think he did really well in the first 15 minutes. And then, ironically enough, he didn't have a ton of stamina. So I don't want to go back through this because my audience has heard this tonight. But I think what you're talking about is important, the screaming, because it falls on deaf ears now, the screaming about Trump, because they've done it with every Republican ever.
Yeah, so here's what I got, because I agree with that. And I agree the political system right now is pretty much rattled and broken a little bit. And I think what you have to do is sometimes you got to suck it up. Honestly, there was a time, remember when Dukakis ran? I was watching Dukakis, and I can't vote for this guy. I just can't. I don't like what he stands for. He doesn't really stand for anything. He's wonky. I don't trust with what's going on. The Soviet Union just fall. I didn't trust him. I didn't trust that he was going to handle them. So I voted for Bush 1. I did. I was like, all right, this guy, I'm going to vote for this guy. And I think that's where we lose it. Sometimes you got to put ideology aside and just vote country. And I've done that a couple of times where I just like, nah. That's why I claim to be an independent. I voted for 3 different Republicans, and I think we all need to stop this infighting. Like, there's people that won't talk. If you don't believe what they believe, they're done. They don't know who you are as a person. They don't know that you could be probably their best friend and not get. They just cut you off. That's where we're lost.
Well, and that's why are you laughing?
Been there.
Oh yeah, been there. We won't. His name, who shall not be spoken. Well, I'm glad to hear you. And that's why we wanted to have you back, because that was, I think, probably the most contentious interview debate we've done on the program. And so hopefully people watching can see. Because if you watch the other debates I've had in the show, I think I have enough tracker where people are like, oh, Stephen was mad about something. So I think it's important for people to see that even if you scream and you get mad, that you can come back on. You're obviously welcome, and we don't hate Christopher Titus, though I think voting for Hillary Clinton is a fatal error. But
I'm actually voting against. Fatal error I would not say. I would say maybe we'll put the car in the ditch. I think the other guy's a fatal error. I think there's a guy 40 years of public service, whatever you think happened. She's had 14 different Republican committees try to take her down. It hasn't happened, and they got her husband. They got her husband on impeachment.
Half of them had brakes go out in their car, so it's not really fair.
I actually do a joke about the last 4 candidates running for president, and I do all 4. I said the last 4 guys, we had Trump, who's like this mobster 4-year-old, and I mean he's got the hands of a 4-year-old, and he just says what he wants. Like, it's crazy. I'd like to do my daughter. What? Like, he's crazy. Then he had Cruz, and with Cruz, you could just see Cruz. I'm glad he quit, because you could just see this sentence playing in Cruz's head all the time. No one's ever going to wipe a booger on me again. No one's ever going to wipe a booger on me again. And then you got Hillary, who, has this wake of bodies behind her, allegedly. I say allegedly because I don't want to end up in a suspicious one-car accident.
Yes.
Sitting in the front seat, with trunk carpet fibers on my shirt and a suicide note written in a language I don't speak. And then
news today, Christopher Titus's propeller plane went down over the Pacific.
And then you have Bernie, who I love Bernie, but at one point you just realize, oh, he's just like a really grumpy model train enthusiast.
Yeah.
You just picture him in the White House just going, toot toot. Mr. President, Vladimir Putin's on the phone. I told you, don't bother me when I'm playing with my trains.
Yeah.
So I think we have to. I'm glad we got to talk, Holmes. I just got to say, I'm glad we got to talk. We can do this again, man. I would love to talk with you. It's better to do it this way than screaming. I think instead of a street fight, we had a tweet fight first, and I think that's the problem.
You started it. I was sitting there. You were the one. I was like, okay.
Believe me, I will finish it.
Believe me. No,
Believe me.
I'm glad to have you back on. Okay, let me ask you this: if it were like a Rubio, someone with a lot of experience, polished, or a Carly Fiorina versus Hillary, would you consider the other side?
I always consider the other side. I actually, even with Trump at the beginning, listen, I believe that if you got this far, there's got to be something you have going on. So what I do, because I do a podcast too, the Titus podcast, I do a lot of research. I start researching everything, and I don't research one thing. I start to get this really, like, I go broad because there's a lot of people say a lot of crap all the time.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, we have a president. He's got 3 rape allegations. He's got, like, there's this list of stuff. He's ripped off many workers. He's got 3,500 lawsuits. And I'm not even arguing with you. I'm just saying these are just facts that are going on right now. And at one point I go, I don't remember ever in our history Eisenhower having 3 rape allegations. I don't remember. And then Hillary's got all these allegations too.
And her husband, and they were covered up, and she defended a child rapist and laughed about it. It's one thing to defend a child rapist. It's one thing years later to suppress evidence and laugh about it.
We can go through the 3 things with Hillary too. We can go, she supported the senator who used to be a cake. That was 40 years ago. KKK thing. He came out and said, I was wrong, and she's now
Actually, that's I understand where you're coming from, and I do think it's irrelevant. I don't think she's a racist. I don't think Donald Trump's a racist. However, Robert Byrd said the N-word repeatedly, enunciated as recently as 2002. And he was 4th in line for the presidency if a plane went down with Obama, Biden, and I think at that time it was Pelosi. So, like,
I don't think that reflects on Hillary. That's that guy. But that's what we've lost in politics. Whether it's Congress can't deal with the president, and I believe for this party that just bitches about the Constitution all the time. You have to vote on the presidential Supreme Court nominee. Just vote on it. Yeah, vote him out. Don't say no. That's fine. But have the balls to stand up. We have a bunch of people right now that won't stand up. Vote no and be proud of it. I know I don't like this guy. I'm not voting him in. That's it. Then it's done. But people are so worried about politically down the road what's going to happen instead of doing their job for us. And I would say that on both sides.
Well, I think you're right. They tried to paint Republicans the party of no for a long time, and I always said, you know what? I'm fine with it. No, we don't want a mandate, an unconstitutional mandate that people have to purchase private insurance. No. I was like, okay, I'm fine with a no on that. I'm fine with it. And people, if you want to say they're the party of no, that's fine. I wish more people in office, Congress, Senate, judges, I wish they would vote no more often as it relates to expanding government. Hey, we want this free thing. No. Hey, we want this free thing. No. I'm okay with that. And I think that's something that more people, if they understood on the left, especially coming from a socialist country like Canada, that it doesn't work just because you don't think the government can do it efficiently, doesn't mean you don't want people to have good health care, doesn't mean you don't want them to have good retirement, doesn't mean you don't want them to be safe. You just understand that government is not the entity that can do it well.
Well, the government has a tendency to. The problem with the government, the ideas are great. The people, what screws it up is the people that come up with the ideas, come up with the rules, and then everybody. A buddy of mine has this concept called half a glass of juice. There's people in the world you meet. The half a glass of juice guy, the security guard in the parking lot that's screaming at you because your car isn't between the lines. That guy's got half a glass of juice. It doesn't really matter that your car is an inch over the line, but that guy, could you repark it, sir? We have to put that guy. And then you got these guys that are really powerful people that are the nicest people. Dana Carvey told me once, I said, tell me something about famous people. He said, the ones with real talent, the ones who know who they are the nicest people. The ones that are barely holding on, half a glass of juice. He said, those people will act like psychopaths. And I think what happens in government is we get there's, percentage of people are going to be douchebags and on both sides. And because we have the percentage of douchebags up there, they put more regulations that don't serve the public, but just serve their personal interests. And that's where everything starts to go sideways. If you could take human beings and let the Skynet computers just make the policy, I think we'd be a lot better off.
I know how that story ends with Skynet. It ends with what's her name doing pull-ups in a mental ward in a nuclear holocaust.
That's my mom. My mom was in and out of mental institutions. That movie when I was like, how would if mom worked out? That's my
yeah. Oh my gosh, and she did not age well. You either can be fat. You can be skinny or you can look young. Fatter people look younger for longer. So she just did not. Time was not kind to her. What's the best? But we have to go. I'm glad to have you back. We'll have you back longer. What's the best place again for people to find you?
Go if you wanna tweet at me angrily. Go to @TitusNation on Twitter. The Real Christopher Titus on Facebook. And if you go to Christopher Titus TV, you can watch some of my comedy and then tell me how bad I suck.
Yes, they will no doubt do that, and the worst place in the world is the YouTube comment section. So, Christopher Titus, thank you for being with us, sir. And to people who are going to comment or tweet, keep it civil. You can make fun of some things, like his appearance or how white his teeth are, but don't get personal on, like,
I hate these teeth, damn it.
I don't know. This has gone off the rails. We'll be back! We'll be back. And now Lester Holt receives some disappointing news. Gosh, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, Mr. Holt.
No, that's quite all right. I can take it.
Well, I got to tell you, the person of color journalism grant, you were close, but they went another direction.
Oh, that's incredibly surprising.
I know. I was as surprised as you.
I really thought I had that on a deadlock.
Yeah, I know.
Well, if you don't mind, good sir, could you kindly tell me who did win?
Yeah, sure, but I don't think you're going to like it. Sean King.
Oh, Skunked Again by Sean King. Might I ask why? Did they give a reason, perchance?
Yeah, they did. They said they were looking to go more urban.
Oh, that stands to reason.
This has been Lester Holt Receives Disappointing News. Glad to be with you. Final segment. That's Hopper Crowder barking. By the way, for those asking with the well wishes, his surgery went very well. He seems to be walking better, doesn't he?
He does. Immediately.
He had knee surgery a while back. People asking my dog, and they put this sort of fake stabilizer.
What's with the knee surgeries in your family?
I don't know. Me,
Household.
Hopper. And what happened is once his ligament had scarred over and his knee had stabilized, then this sort of, I guess it's like silicone and steel, was loose. And it was rubbing up against, and so it caused irritation. I mean, his knee looks like Frankenstein's monster, but so you'd think he'd be in more pain. He's walking better right now.
Yeah.
So good for him. So that people have been asking, and I think his presidential campaign will continue next week.
Yeah, I'm sure
we might have Dean Cain.
I think he's eager to hit the trails, get back there.
I think so. Next week we have Paul Joseph Watson.
And I'll have to contact our booker about who else we have.
Okay, we have a few. Oh, that's right. I remember. We're still waiting on confirmation.
I am the booker, by the way. I just have no idea who.
Yes, who could be very good. So I know often, I really appreciate people often send me these emails about the closing segment and how it inspires them for the week. I don't know if this one so much will inspire you, but the big picture here is important. I hope it does. And it ties back into having someone like Andrew Bogut on here. And for every Andrew Bogut who you see on the show, listen, the guy's making $13 million. Obviously, he's a big name. He doesn't do any of these conservative shows.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who watch this and enjoy it. I like to think it's because we're more entertaining than the constant shrill, Obama, thanks, Obama. We're trying to do a little bit more than that. But there's a greater issue at play here. We were talking about this. We were talking about Emma Watson at the UN, demanding that they do something. I don't even know what her deal was on equal pay and treating sexual violence as though it's not the case yet. And we need to make sure that educational institutions are more equal. In other words, demanding more of this safe space, trigger warning, social justice environment in school. We saw it with Ariel Winter talking about you should be proud and body pride and no criticism. Here are my breasts, but don't comment on my breasts. People don't have the right to talk this way. How how horrible and misogynistic is this? They accuse you all of being sexist. We then talked about the UN now coming in telling the United States you need to pay reparations for slavery. Barack Obama went to the UN saying we need to give up our freedoms for the greater good. And then you have, of course, Elizabeth Warren and the entire left against charter schools, choice, educating yourself, illuminating new issues, new possibilities, innovation. Emma Watson doesn't want it in college. The UN and our president doesn't want it in the United States. The DNC and the leftist movement, they don't even want it in public schools. You notice a very disturbing trend of them entirely, not a little bit, entirely trying to control the discussion and the control, the flow of information. That's what we've been seeing here in the last few weeks, and you see it with the elections as well. You see it with the way they cover the elections, the way they cover the debates, the way they cover Donald Trump. Whether you like him or not, no one can argue that their treatment of him has been fair in comparison to Hillary. And here's a silver lining with that. That's why people like Andrew Bogut, who are in the NBA, part of the full court sports press, where it is just, let's give Caitlyn Jenner an award for winning the triathlon as Bruce. It is so far left. For a long time, people didn't feel like they could speak up. For a long time, people didn't feel like they could ever come on a program like this. And that's changed. When the left is so overbearing and trying to control everything, it makes it okay for you to push back a little more. And that's no one's going to blame you. Now, I understand conservatives out there, it's easy to get depressed because you never have a safe space. Right? The entire educational world is a safe space for liberals. Hollywood, we've talked about, is one big safe space for liberals. As a conservative, you never get that. A safe space is basically a place where ideas go completely untested. All right, safe space, don't say things I don't like. You never get that as a libertarian, conservative, constitutionalist, federalist, whatever you want to call yourself. You don't get that benefit.
And what you see now, not to interrupt, but what you see now is not colleges and universities preparing students for the real world. They're creating their own fake world, their own. Yeah. They're molding it to how they want, and they say, now go make the real world, go force it to be like this safe space.
And it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And that's why
it's not reality.
No, we see it with all child actors.
Yeah.
We see it with people in Hollywood. The real world kicks their teeth in, and you see that happening with college students when they get in the real world. Even people who would pull the lever for Hillary Clinton don't tolerate them a whole lot.
Nope.
So if you're and same thing with people like Andrew Bogut, people out there, even LeBron James, I bet you is going to come around because he's seen the backlash in simply saying we all need to come together. When they are so overbearing, it allows the pendulum to swing the other way, and people don't blame you as much. And here's the beauty of that: conservatives, federalists, whatever you want to call yourself. I always get flack for the language. You are going to be so much better prepared. This season in the United States of entirely trying to censor speech, it's been exposed. It's been exposed on YouTube. It's been exposed on Twitter. It's been exposed on Facebook. It's been exposed with the UN. It's been exposed with colleges, right? It's been exposed. And so the dialogue is going to start taking place. It's going to have to now when big names are coming out. Okay, this is ridiculous. People who aren't even necessarily political, like a Bogut. The dialogue has to take place. And here's the beauty. These people, these safe spacers, the Emma Watsons, the Elizabeth Warrens, who take your pick, the Sean Kings, they're not ready for that dialogue to take. You've been having it all the time. You've been having it your entire life because you're a conservative. You've had to defend your views. They never have. So you are primed and ready now. When the floodgates open and people start talking about these issues, people are no longer afraid to be accused of being a racist, sexist, misogynist, xenophobic. Now that we can have these conversations, we always were. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of it. So it may seem depressing if you're in college. I don't blame you. You don't have that safe space, but it's like training with a weighted bat, with a weighted vest. When you get in the real world, that's why invariably people become more conservative, or conservatives are more successful and happier in the real world. Believe me, college sucks. They'd probably get more depressed if we had statistics on that. In the real world, they fare better because while these kids have been training their entire life to avoid the real world, you've been preparing yourself for it. So it's okay to go through a little bit of pain now. People out there, I know we have a lot of young kids, college students. Expect that. But when the shackles come off, when the weighted vest comes off, my God, you are going to be amazed as to how easy it is. Hopefully that helps. Talk to you next week.